across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very, very good morning. Welcome to the show. We're heading to 3 minutes past 10 o'clock. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense, and I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. You are listening on DAB+ radio or your smart speaker, or you're watching on YouTube or your Connect device, and we are very grateful to have you join us. Thank you very much indeed for that. If you have to miss anything of the show, don't forget you can go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe, and you never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be discussing a lot about, well, what Rachel Reeves had to say and what she didn't have to say in that statement yesterday. Happened while we were on air yesterday, just at the beginning. But it's basically looking at the Mail are getting middle-class families. We're actually talking about working families. People who work and have got on in life who are going to be paying higher taxes to basically bail out people on lower incomes, people on benefits, people not working at all, but many of whom could be working, subsidising an energy bailout for them. This after Rachel Reeves has ruled out sort of a across-the-board bailout for everybody, as Liz Truss did, which she sort of condemned as helping the wealthy the most. But this was exactly the bailout that she and the current Prime Minister called for in 2022, backed, and indeed said they wanted to do it sooner and more help. So, I mean, apparently things have completely changed since 2022. But we're talking about that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Also, the warnings that Europe risks shortages as soon as next month. That's in a week's time, guys. That's from the boss of Shell. Warning from one of the biggest sort of finance people in the world. The head of BlackRock, basically saying that we could, if we see oil keep on creeping up by the barrel, we could actually look at seeing a global recession. Oh, yeah. The good news just keeps on coming. Or is there a peace deal on the table? Donald Trump has now said he's handed around a 15-point plan to end the war. He says he's in talks about ending the war. Iran denies all of this. So what the heck is going on? We will do our best to get to the bottom of it. So much to talk about. I'd love to hear your thoughts, as you always know, on anything you want to call in about, but in particular, working families having to basically foot the bill for Rachel Reeves' energy bailout for those on benefits. What is your reaction to that? I mean, yeah, we want to help the poorest, but again, the bill always comes back to us. And by the way, quite a lot of tax on energy. And quite a lot of, green levies and all of that. And in fact, if you take all the tax off fuel, you'd basically be looking at halving pretty much the cost of certainly the fuel we put in our cars, but also a massive cut to the fuel that we need to heat and light our homes. So I want to give you a chance to have your say on that. 0344 499 1000. What's your message to the Chancellor? Give us a call. Let us know. Text the word TALK and your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Lots of you are already doing that. And we'll get to those messages as soon as we can. Don't forget that calls are charged at the national rate and text cost one standard network rate message. Delighted to say, joining me as always on a Wednesday, Claire Pearce, former Conservative Government Advisor. Very good morning to you.
Morning.
Thanks so much for joining us. Just that breaking news in the last, I think, an hour and a quarter now. Two men have been arrested on suspicion of the Golders Green ambulance arson attack. Counter-terrorism police have been investigated, although they don't know if it's a terror attack or not. There had been some questions about a Iran-backed group claiming on social media, without providing any evidence, they were behind this attack. But the two men, aged 47 and 45, arrested on suspicion of arson with intent to endanger life. They were arrested in two different addresses in northwest and central London this morning. Those four ambulances completely burnt out, of course. They're, of course, a volunteer-led ambulance service at Solar. And let's just explain it for the hard of understanding at the back once again. Yes, it's funded by Jewish community. In the Jewish community, these ambulances largely operate in areas where there is a large Jewish community. In North London, they also operate in Manchester and other cities where they have larger Jewish communities. But they are open to all the public. Have access to those numbers. It is well known. I've lived in that area near Golders Green. I know that number is publicly available and that service is available to anyone who needs it, and they work in conjunction with the London Ambulance Service. Oh yeah, just like the St John's Ambulance does. And no one seems to have a problem with that. But there we are. I have to say, look, obviously as soon as there are arrests, you have to be wary of what you can say. I would say largely unusual that people in their 40s, two men in their 40s, would be arrested for such a crime.
I was really surprised when I saw that. I was expecting these to be much younger individuals. I wasn't expecting them to have arrested anybody so far.
Even actually looking at the CCTV of the running down the road.
Yeah. I mean, it was quite outstanding. So I think the police are aware that the CCTV footage shows more than 2 people at the site, so I'm sure that there are investigations ongoing. But I'm pleased that they've managed to catch some of these people so quickly.
Suspects. We must be clear. Yes. I think we should have a little round of applause for the news that the police actually arrest people. Well done, and especially for an anti-Semitic alleged crime.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, Met Police, way to go. We didn't know you actually did this part of the job that we pay you to do. So we'll just see what happens there. Of course, people innocent until proven guilty, etc. Have no charges brought as yet. We'll keep you up to date on any developments on that. Although it's interesting, actually, Sadiq Khan has been criticised for failing to go to the scene of that ambulance fire bomb. I mean, Jesus, everyone else and their dog turned up, didn't they?
They did.
Let's talk about these. This is a front page headline of the Mail. They know their audience. They get middle class families to foot bill from Rachel Reeves' Benefit Street fuel bailout amid fears Iran war will hike energy bills.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, tick, tick, tick. Every single one of they haven't got asylum seekers in there, but they're ticking a lot of other boxes.
Yeah.
But it's not. Again, they're saying middle class families because that's what their readership is. But actually, you're talking about just working families who are not on minimum wage. You're talking about everybody who has got on in life, goes out, gets up in the morning, the alarm clock workers, get up in the morning and go to work. So our taxes, we're told there's not going to be any more borrowing to pay for this any bailout if it comes. Not actually been announced yet.
Yeah.
Rachel Reeves is basically saying, but it will be targeted. But if it is targeted, as Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, pointed out yesterday, that means targeted support is taxes on other people to pay for support to others. Yeah. I actually am of the view that the support should be targeted and it shouldn't be a bailout across the board. And that we are just going to have to, life happens, stuff happens abroad and it affects our what we do. We ain't got the money. But yet again, it's this idea that you could just keep on, because this is what it's going to mean, taxing people who work hard.
Yes.
And who often are, as Jacob was just saying, they're just about managing. So just getting by that little bit extra when council tax is going to go up 5%, 7.5% in some areas as of next week. I mean, people are struggling already.
Well, this is it. They're being hit every which way. And council tax, I mean, that's the biggest bane of my life. Mine's going up by 4%. And you start to look at how much it's creeped up and it's enormous. But then there's costs of groceries. There's the minute you go shopping, clothes and things like that, more expensive, especially if you've got children trying to buy shoes. Really expensive. So there are families who are struggling, but because they don't
kids have a habit of growing out of their shoes very irritatingly.
So quickly.
Usually I find about 3 weeks after you've bought them.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And just before the end of a term where you can't send them in because they've got holes in their shoes.
All been there.
But I think that looking at it being targeted is fine. What metric are you going to use? And it seems to be those in receipt of the Warm Homes payment. Well, that doesn't take into account those hardworking families who really are on minimum wage.
You're talking about people who are on very, very low incomes at that point, and many of those would be disabled. Again, absolutely, we need to be helping people who need that. Yeah, I've got a very big problem with a teenager suffering from anxiety. Apparently, can't work on a Monday morning and helping to pay there. But I'm sorry, I do have a problem with that. And I think most people do. But this is it. I mean, what is fascinating is Rachel Reeves yesterday, though, being very critical of the bailout under Liz Truss. Which happened. Of course, we all remember this actually. This was all announced around the time of the Queen. It was the day of the Queen's death, wasn't it? Was. So there was a lot going in the Commons at the time. You kind of forgot the fact that. And at the time, do you remember the possible budget for this was 160 billion quid? Yeah. It actually ended up being, I think, around the 40 billion mark. But a huge sum of money. Yeah. But you remember, our bills were just sky high, and even with that bailout, the bills were still sky high. But we didn't have the money then. And we certainly don't have the money now. But it is extraordinary for Rachel Reeves to be so scathing yesterday about this when she and the Prime Minister not only supported that bailout, called for that bailout, called for it to come sooner and called for it to be more. Yeah.
But then that's always the way, isn't it? Because it wasn't their responsibility. They were spending other people's money, and that's what Labour governments and Labour opposition members always call for.
Was it the right thing to do back in 22?
I don't think a universal handout like that is the right thing to do, because inevitably it's going to cost more. You try and remove it after a short period of time, and that's where all of your problems come in.
The thing is, if you're a taxpayer above basic minimum wage, you'll say, well, at least I appreciated that help at that time. A lot of people were in dire straits. But at the end of the day, you didn't get a bailout. You're just paying for it a different way.
Yeah, of course, you're going to pay for it longer as well. So it's one of those things. But once you've given something, to take it away is really, really tricky, and that's where the hard work comes in.
I mean, look, we've got these warnings, haven't we? The boss of Shell, he says that Europe could be facing a fuel shortage within days. I mean, April starts. Tell us something we don't know. And again, oil and gas is going to go to the highest bidder. That's what happens. I mean, it's a market. We've been told it's a market. Well, there you are, then we've got no money to bid for it. If the price of oil hits $150 a barrel, it's around the $100 mark-ish now, isn't it? It is, veering around massively depending on what Trump has tweeted that day. And that, basically, if it goes to $150 a barrel, which is absolutely not inconceivable, and there had been some talk about Iran trying to get it up to $200 a barrel by completely closing the Strait of Hormuz. It's currently open to to non-combatants and allies. That would trigger a global recession. Who said this? The boss of the financial giant BlackRock. He knows what he's talking about. This is Larry Fink.
Yes, and we should pay attention to this. And I think a lot of people are going to dismiss it as scaremongering, but it is likely to happen. And what people don't understand
if we don't see an end to the war.
If we don't see an end to the war. And what people don't understand is the amount of uses oil has. It's not just for putting in your car. So many parts of the manufacturing industry are in need of it. And also,
could you email Ed Miliband and tell him this?
I'd love to. Ed, when you're listening, you should be listening. You need to sort this out. Stop looking at windmills. You need to be drilling more. I just can't understand why he has not taken this into his thick head.
He's actually a danger to this country now. He's a danger to our energy security, our economy, our actual defences. What he's doing is pushing us into. I mean, the cost of energy, the cost of cost of everything is going to go up for the NHS. They're going to have less resources to spend on saving lives. He's probably going to cost people lives. So that said, ultimately, it's not Ed Miliband. At the end of the day, he owes his job to Keir Starmer, and Keir Starmer is the person who I mean, Ed Miliband's a true believer, apparently. Keir Starmer ain't a true believer in anything other than Keir Starmer. But he's still playing along with this madness. And again, your lot were just as bad. Thank God. I mean, thank God that Reform were the first ones who said a few years ago, net zero madness. No, jump in the whole thing. Kemi Badenoch is pretty much there as well. The reality is, and I've said this as my poor long-suffering audience can testify many years, that net zero does not survive contact with reality. Well, reality just hit, folks. And I've said also for a very long time, we're going to actually have blackouts before the public go, no, stop, because you have all these polls. People are in favour of net zero. No, they're in favour of environmental issues. They would like water to be clean. They would like to have fuel, not have pollution. By the way, we have less pollution now than we've ever had. Are you kidding? And they would like people not to litter in the streets and dump things. That's kind of where their views stop. And when they're told how much will you support, how much of a cost to you for supporting net zero, it stops at £10 a year. Genuinely, how much are you willing to pay? Because basically, you're going to be paying tens of thousands of pounds. That's the cost, really, of net zero. It's going to cost us so much.
£10.
I mean, people put their money where their mouth is. But it's a massive issue. In terms of where we are in Iran, we've got. I mean, every day, every hour, there's another message from Donald Trump suggesting something. But the basic theme we've got is we've been in talks with the Iranians. They are talking with us. There's some talk about, he said about some big financial gain, but that proves that these were the right prize. There's a 15-point peace plan, but the Iranian officials, such as they still exist, are going, we're not talking to you. There isn't a peace plan. We're not going to do anything. But there is some understanding there is some kind of talks. There's some talks planned in in Pakistan, another country that plays both sides and shouldn't be allowed to. How's that worked out for Qatar, guys? But he's proposing a 1-month ceasefire. But there's a lot of talk about how this is actually basically a cunning ruse to wait until the US Marines arrive on site, storming Karg Island, which is basically where 90% of Iranian oil comes out. I mean, who the hell knows what's going on?
Well, we don't. And I think this is the problem now, that we have a president who's putting everything out on social media in capital letters and spelt badly. And then you've got the Iranians who say, no, none of that is true. I mean, who to believe in this? Because
I'm less likely to believe the Iranians, but...
Well, precisely. But if they say they haven't spoken, and we haven't seen the Supreme Leader, have we? None of us have seen him out and about. You get these statements put out. So he's not spoken to the Supreme Leader, but he's spoken to a top person. Well, who is that? I mean, I don't quite understand who's talking to who. And the gift that he's been given, which apparently isn't nuclear, something to do with oil and gas, but it proves he's talking to the right people. The people that gift him things.
The whole thing is, that's why Qatar gets such a good deal.
Yeah.
I mean, the UK has apparently offered to host an international summit on reopening the Strait of Hormuz. We sit on both sides. And but I mean, the reality is, again, if there'd been proper planning for this, the US Marines would have been in place, ready to seize Carg Island to stop this from happening.
Well, you would, because surely you would secure that, even if you're not going to do anything. If you've got a presence there to say, we will destroy it if we need to, and we're already here, then you put the pressure back onto Iran to start behaving in a proper way. But I mean, we're very good at holding conferences, the UK. We're great at organising them.
Yeah, well done us. Yeah, it's just basically not actually getting anything done. Let's talk about the NHS, because the NHS is in the news for net satisfaction ratings for the NHS have gone up. I mean, they've gone up from 21% to 26%. Well, not even net, just the number of people who actually say that they are satisfied with the NHS. Apparently, younger people are more fed up than elderly people, which is interesting because elderly people are more likely to use the service. But I find they're also the people who are more likely to say, "Oh, I'm so grateful to the NHS." Yeah. Well, why are you grateful? I'm not grateful for lampposts having lights on them. I paid for that. I'm always very, anytime I've needed healthcare or had to take an elderly relative for healthcare, thank you very much, very appreciative, very polite, people are doing a good job, you're not being kept waiting. But I'm not grateful in the way that, oh no, thank you for giving me something which I've sodding well paid for. It's quite bizarre. But I mean, this is a gold standard survey. This has been carried out for years and years and years. Basically, satisfaction with the NHS fell in 2024 to a record low of 21%, and is now up to 26%. I mean, it used to be, well above the 50%. What used to be, 70% in 2010, 70%, and that is quite a big fall. I think that's just down to not just what happened during COVID, not just the fact the long delays now. I mean, I've had a relative who's had to have a knee operation and a hip operation and paid for it to go pay privately because it simply wasn't going to happen for 18 months. And I'm sorry, that's not an acceptable wait for anybody. And if you've got the money, and then so people are opting out. But by the way, those surgeons who do that private surgery, a lot of them work in the NHS. That's what's crazy, but they're not available in the NHS because they're doing, my relatives. And that's unfair and it's wrong. And why should somebody, because they can't afford that, have to wait that length of time in a first world country? Wes Streeting is saying there's plenty more to do. He's doing a speech right now about reforming the NHS. Oh, we're always reforming the NHS. But we know how bad the management of the NHS is. We see it again and again, these catastrophic outcomes in maternity hospitals or in heart treatment or that there's something going wrong with, and it's NHS management that's the problem.
Well, of course it is, the levels of management, what they deem to be a priority, but also just the sheer purchasing power of the NHS means that you should be able to get things at a really good price. Unfortunately, they're run by people that have no concept of business. So bandages, paracetamol, plasters, things like that cost at least 10 times the price that you can go and buy them.
But
in
it's
the
not even that. It's just spending money on a net zero officer rather than another radiographer. I mean, it's not even up for debate, that one.
It's not. And why do you have to have layers of management? Surely, if you have a chief executive who is really tough, you need a couple of other people, and then you need hospital staff to do their job.
Yeah, I do find it extraordinary. And again, yet another abject failing from the NHS. The Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother Hospital in Margate in Kent, they basically waited 2 days before they alerted the UK Health Security Agency, the UK HSA, about a meningitis outbreak. 2 days. Now, they are required by law to notify even suspected meningitis cases, because you can take, that's the problem. You often have to treat before you know for sure. It's what happened to my daughter, who didn't have meningitis when she was 3, but they treat because too late to treat once you know for sure, and the test often doesn't come back for another 24 hours. But they said they basically waited 2 days. They've got a case, they had a patient in from a student on the Wednesday, and they didn't tell the UKHSA until the Friday. And then, of course, they didn't alert the public until Sunday. Abject failures on all fronts, again, by the lanyard class. I'm guessing loads of people working from home. That's my theory, that I bet you anything that's going to come out. But then we went ahead with a whole load of events on Saturday, Friday night and Saturday night, student union stuff, where loads of people mixed. More cases may have happened as a result, and more youngsters needing to have those antibiotics. And that's an abject failure. It's very, very simple to me. Whoever's job it was, because the doctors tell the management, and the management require, whoever's job it was to inform the UK HSA needs to be sacked. Yeah. It's very simple. You had one job. And you didn't. And someone at the UK HSA needs to be sacked for not informing the university and everybody immediately as well. Everyone failed. Everyone failed, and lives could have been lost or been at risk as a result. If you've got a job like that, you need to do it properly, and people need to be held to account. And one of the big issues in the NHS is no one is held to account. Babies die, no one's held to account. People don't get treated, no one is held to account. I'm sorry, when you start holding the paper pushers to account, you get action.
Well, of course you do, and these people really do need to have that given to them writ large. Here's your P45, off you go. Because you've got
no payoff.
No payoff.
Gross misconduct.
Any other business wouldn't have accepted that, and that person would have been out on their ear. You've got...
Well, if they'd misgendered somebody who had meningitis, they would have been.
Can you imagine?
No, but I'm seriously, this is the thing.
I know, and I know that there are uni students who weren't told about this. They just saw people lining up and just went, what on earth are you doing? Well, we're going to get some antibiotics. They didn't know about it.
They probably hadn't read their emails, to be fair. Have you met students?
I have. And you kind of think they needed to go around with a megaphone.
Maybe telling everybody. Posters up in the student union, the bars, and
behind the bar, you would have been fine.
I reckon you and I could have managed that better, which is a worry. It is a worry, isn't it? Here's another worry. I think this is an extraordinary story. We already knew that Morgan McSweeney, the Prime Minister's former Chief of Staff, who, basically fell on his own sword in a bid to save the Prime Minister, I don't think it will, that he'd had his phone stolen last year. Now, we were told by Steve Reid, a government minister, that his phone was stolen a year ago. Well, it was last year, but it wasn't a year ago. It was October the 20th. And that was basically a month after Mandelson had been sacked by the Prime Minister for when it emerged, which we already knew about, even more of his dealings with a close friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. If I'd known then what I know now, that's that time of that. Now, extraordinarily, the Prime Minister, Chief of Staff, who was on the phone at the time when someone on a bike, he claims, grabbed his phone and then took it. The police did not investigate this theft because they took down the wrong address and were too busy to speak to him, despite the fact he was... Remind you again, the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff. The theft of the work device apparently meant that McSweeney's WhatsApp messages and texts to Lord Mandelson, the former ambassador to the US, cannot be retrieved. What an extraordinary thing. But here's the thing. He got a new phone from the government the next day, and his phone, they basically cleared out his phone. You just disable the phone. And he's got. So how did he get all his contacts back? How did he manage to get all those mobile numbers back? Oh, because it was all in the cloud. It was all backed up. And if it wasn't backed up, what the hell were you thinking, Morgan McSweeney? So it's got it all backed up in the cloud, and you're able to get all of your phone numbers back. There's no record, by the way, of journalists having difficulty contacting him around this time because he didn't have their numbers or he couldn't contact anybody. So he has all his phone book is intact, but apparently he can't retrieve his WhatsApp messages. But I changed my phone last year, and we took everything off this phone, or the old phone, and then my husband, IT boy, he put it all on the other phone. I mean, but I didn't lose any WhatsApp messages. I've still got them all.
It's magic, isn't it? When you
so
just
what's going on?
Restore your phone to a new device and there are all your messages and pictures and absolutely everything else. But isn't that timing? Isn't that terrible luck?
Such bad luck.
Looking at investigating something and somebody happens to come past and steal your phone. But why did he not also report it into the protection services in Downing Street? I know at the Home Office there was a list of people we had to inform if anything went missing, if your pass was lost, if your phone was taken, your laptop, anything. Whole list of them.
But even just the fact he's got private numbers. When I was political editor and I had a phone that was stolen, and I had to say, I've got the Home Secretary's private mobile on there. I've got the Prime Minister's private number. Obviously, this is a security issue. This is before everything was locked properly. This is, I mean, this is an issue, and it was taken seriously then. The fact that the Met Police didn't investigate, big question marks. Although of course they don't bother investigating any of these things anymore, and that's why these things happen more. The fact that they can't miraculously retrieve these messages, although Peter Manderson's phone, by all accounts, is being held by the Metropolitan Police at the current time, in which case those messages are going to be available anyway. I mean, frankly, the plot thickens, and I've got some question marks about this, the incompetence of the police and failure of the police to do their basic job. You're never too busy to investigate the theft of the phone of somebody who works in Downing Street. For a start, there are security implications there, but there's question marks for me about, frankly, obstruction of justice, perverting the course of justice. I've got some serious questions that need to be answered. Did
Morgan McSweeney tell the police who he was? Not in a "don't you know who I am" kind of way.
Just FYI, you probably should know.
Just like you to know. But why didn't he report it in? Because if he'd reported it to the protection services in Downing Street, they would have had the Met on the phone anyway. So something doesn't really quite add up, and somebody's not telling the entire truth.
No, we keep having that from this government, don't we? But there we are. 10:28 is the time. Love to hear your thoughts on all of that. 0344 499 1000. Covered a lot of ground there. Lots more to cover. I particularly want to hear from you about this energy bailout. Basically, if you've got a job, we're going to be paying for bailing out everybody else, even though actually the problem is years and years of failure by government after government to failure to basically shore up our energy security in this country. But, just carries on happening, doesn't it? Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. We'll take your calls up next. This is Talk.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 10:31 is the time. Let's get straight to your calls. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Stuart's done just that. He's in Wigan. Hi, Stuart. What do you want to say? Hey, Stuart.
First of all, before I get on to my main thing, can I just say something first? Because I think they need to know it. Can I just say that I think the majority of the people in this country 100% behind the Jewish people, and I think they're a lot better people than definitely me, because if I'd been treated like them, there's no way I'd be using ambulances that I paid for other people. But getting back to the normal things...
I agree with you on that, by the way.
Yeah. Getting back to this bailout, I'm sick to death of this.
Yeah.
I am sick to death of this. I was a single dad. I brought my kids up from being very young.
Yep.
Right, so I had nothing, right? But I worked all the way through it. And I struggled.
Yep.
Right, but I got there. But I work now. Obviously, my kids have grown up now and they've left. They've got their own houses and this, that and the other. I'm in my house on my own now, right? So there's one way it's coming in. I work between 50 and 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
And I'm now in the process of looking for a second job.
To make ends meet. And you're going to be bailing out people who aren't working.
Yeah. But the thing is, though, working the 50, 60 hours a week, I put, and this is including probably 2 hours on Christmas Day, I put my heating on for less than 10 hours this winter.
Wow.
And I mean a lot less than 10 hours, but closer to 6.
Because you were just so afraid of the cost.
To death. Yeah. But the thing is, all this targeted thing gets me as well, because we know who they're going to target.
Yep.
You know, the immigrants are getting they're eating paid, so they've got it on 24 hours a day. When they get out, they open the windows. They don't turn it off.
Well, the illegal migrants who are in asylum hotels. Yeah. No, exactly. People alone. Yeah, people who aren't working.
We understand as well.
Yeah. No, I completely understand your frustration.
But, I mean, I'm not one of these. You know what I mean? As far as I'm concerned, the pensioners that have worked all their life, as far as I'm concerned, they can give them their eating for nothing. I don't have an issue with that
because people,
whatsoever.
especially when you're elderly and you
nothing to this country.
Yeah, if you're elderly and you're infirm and you need to have the heating on. Stuart, I appreciate your call and I appreciate your anger as well. I think a lot of people will share that. Thank you. Barry's on the line in Norwich. Hi, Barry. What do you want to say?
Just a quick comment on the mobile, if I can.
Yeah.
On my mobile phone, I have this thing called Find My Mobile. And if my mobile gets stolen, I can go on my laptop, my tablet, and I can actually find my mobile. Yeah. And so, you know,
quite useful, isn't it? How I track my bag things. I have my AirPods in there. Funny that.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, getting back to this mad Miliband. Correct me if I'm wrong, but apparently the UK is responsible for 1% of global emissions. Yeah,
yep.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So even if we did get to net zero, whatever that is, and do we get a gold medal when we get there and a rosette and a well done? Yeah, right.
No, we just get poorer.
Be reducing the world's emissions by 1%.
Yes.
So this madness that is going on,
Yep.
with, you know, this guy, Ed Miliband, is a very dangerous idiot. Because he's quite happy to, have trees chopped down in northern Canada and sawdust shipped over to the Drax power station. He's quite happy for the Norwegians to drill in the North Sea, the same North Sea that's next to us, and buy it off them. Yep. Yeah, right. He's quite happy to have all this oil, brought over from Qatar and Saudi Arabia. I just think to myself, we need to get these people out. And, when I hear the Conservatives go on about Kevin Badenoch goes, well, we're going to scrap net zero. Well, you were the one that planted this seed.
Yeah, well, the Tories were. She in her defence, I've tackled her on that. She was. But, the Tories are massively a part of the problem on this. Most of them seem to have had a wake-up call on it. I would say way too late. But, Barry, I'm with you all the way. I think my next guest will be as well. Barry in Norwich, thank you very much, Dee. Going to go to a quick break. Then we're going to be talking to independent energy analyst Catherine Porter about the energy bill crisis, fuel shortage, and net zero. Why that is basically the key problem behind it. You do not want to miss this. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back. 10:37 is the time. Let's go straight to my next guest and talk to her about, this energy bailout and where we are, the energy crisis that is being predicted within days by the Shell boss. Catherine Porter is an independent energy analyst. Very good morning. Great to have you on the show.
Morning.
Thank you for joining us. Look, we've got the possibility of this bailout, but basically may well go to just those on benefits, working people struggling every day to make ends meet are going to have to end up paying for it. But why do we need an energy bailout at all, given where energy prices are in Europe at the current time? Is it because we may, as the Shell boss has warned, be facing a fuel shortage in Europe within days? And I suppose how much of that is down to energy policy in the UK that it's going to be a problem for you and me?
Okay, it's very much to do with energy policy, but I think what the Shell boss was talking about really was oil and petrol rather than gas and electricity. Yeah. So when the government's talking about offering this support on energy bills, they're talking about gas and electricity. Now, in the height of the Ukraine crisis, when gas prices went very high in 2022, the government did put in place, it was called the Energy Price Guarantee, and that held bills down at £2,500 a year, despite the price cap itself going over £4,000. Now, gas prices are actually nowhere near where they were at that time. Yeah. They're significantly lower. So you could argue that, we're not actually going to approach £2,500 potentially, unless this conflict goes on for a good deal longer. I mean, it's not been long enough yet to really impact that forward purchasing of gas that the suppliers have to do, that basically underpins the wholesale element of the price cap. So that was the first thing. The second thing is around who receives this. And now, obviously, the previous government gave it to everyone. Now, the reason they did that was because they wanted to bring it in quickly, and to come up with differentiated support that's targeted only at some groups is actually quite complicated to do, and it's time-consuming to implement. And I think the government will have the same problem now. I think it will actually struggle to come up with a differentiated programme. If it wants to really give people additional support, the easiest way of doing it is to increase benefits, not to fiddle around with energy bills. So I'm somewhat doubtful that we're going to see that sort of redistribution within bills for this. Yeah. Although we do have wealth redistribution already embedded in bills. I think this might irritate your viewers to understand this, but the Warm Homes discount is paid by all the people who don't get it. Yeah. So the suppliers need to get the list of eligible customers from the Department for Work and Pensions, work out what it's going to cost, and then charge everyone that money.
We already pay more. And anyway, if you're a net taxpayer, contributor, you're already paying. You're paying for people's benefits as well. And again, people don't mind that if it's for people who are desperately in need, or people's obviously pensions. And again, that's paid for by tax at the current time, and people are very happy to do that. That's part of the social contract, isn't it? But I think one of the things that people are most frustrated by, but one of the things that cheers me up that people are awakening to, is the fact that actually we're in a lot of this mess because of long-standing policies under Conservatives being put on, rocket boosters. I don't know, are we allowed rocket boosters under net zero by Ed Miliband? And this absolute dedication to net zero by 2050, and certainly net zero, 95% net zero by 2030 when it comes to electricity. None of which I believe is achievable, none of which I believe is affordable or desirable. But how is net zero policy, as conducted now under this government and the last few Tory governments, how is that impacting what we pay to heat our homes or anything else?
Well, it's coming through in the bills, and primarily in the policy and network element of the bill. So right now, for the period of April to June, that cap has already been determined. So we've got about 35% of that will be wholesale prices. Now that's the cost of gas, and this is for a dual fuel bill. Yeah. But also carbon. The carbon tax is added onto gas prices when you calculate the wholesale price of electricity. So that together is 35% of the wholesale of the total bill. Then you have about 14%, which is policy costs. These are things like the renewable subsidy, called the contract contracts for difference. You've also got some legacy subsidy schemes. Now, they've taken one out. So from April, one of those old subsidies...
Yeah, but we're still... Yeah, let's go big picture. Yeah.
But, yeah.
So carbon tax, subsidies...
So network cost is a big one. That's going up very significantly. And the reason for this is that we're connecting renewables. It's very expensive to connect renewables. You need a lot more wires to connect them than you do for conventional generation. And it's over longer distances. And also you have to manage the real-time moment-to-moment changes, that fluctuations that make the grid more expensive to keep in balance, and you've got to pay for backup. So all of these things get added into our bills, and things like supplier operating costs, that's only about 14%, and supplier profit is only 2.5%. So you get this narrative about profiteering. Well, actually, when it comes to gas and electricity bills, the profits that the energy suppliers are allowed to earn is very limited, and it's really at the lower end of what you'd expect.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I mean, that's well below what most people would think. Oh, they're making 50% profit. We've got this price gouging and profiteering and all this talk. But actually, the people who are profiteering, of course, is the government, because when the price goes up for wholesale gas, or indeed for the price of petrol or diesel, is they take a bigger percentage in tax.
Yeah, so, I mean, the minute that prices started going up, they started complaining about price gouging in the petrol sector. Now, if you look at the pump price of petrol, more than half of that is tax. Now, you have fuel duty, which is a price per litre, and then what they do with that, so they add the fuel duty on top of the cost of the petrol, and then they charge VAT, so we pay VAT on the fuel duty. So the government is raking it in tax on petrol, and then they have the gall to suggest that the petrol companies are price gouging with absolutely zero evidence for that. The government's taking more than half of the price that you're paying.
So again, when we talk about whether it's a subsidy for people's heating their homes, or whether you're talking about some sort of price cap on petrol or diesel at the pubs, actually the government is totally incapable, just like the drop of a hat, click of a finger, no effort whatsoever, to actually just cut the percentage they take. And there wouldn't be a load of, you don't need a team of civil servants to do that. No. You just make that announcement. That is then done, and they could cut the costs for us.
No, and the other thing they could do straight away that would save a lot of money is cancel the carbon tax. It doesn't achieve anything. It makes all of energy more expensive, and it's actually creating massive problems in the refinery sector. We only have 4 refineries left, and they have to compete with imported petrol and other refined products that do not pay carbon taxes in their own countries, and they've been exempted from the carbon border tax.
So they're not economic at all. But this is the thing, it's all just sort of like left hand, right hand, isn't it? But we're constantly told, whenever Ed Miliband is on a TV interview, when he's often, actually, I'd say, with presenters who are fully signed up to the net zero madness themselves, or appear to be, certainly from their questioning, or when he's talking in the House of Commons, he's constantly telling us, we don't understand. This is about, A, it's saving the planet, A, which it isn't. B, the key thing is, but renewables are the future. Renewables are cheaper and will continue to be cheaper, and they will save us from impacts of things like the Ukraine war or the Iran conflict, because we'll have our own reliable energy source. Is that right?
No, and I would really like somebody to put this question to him. His strategy, clean energy and electrification. The government's plan to electrify homes is 600,000 heat pumps per year. We have 28 million homes in this country. That will take 47 years. So what is the government's plan to secure those gas supplies for those 47 years?
Yeah. I mean, again, even the net zero targets they've got right now are up for 2030, which is only 4 years away, which is for just electricity. Do you think sometimes that
less than 5% of total energy demand?
Well, this is
less than 20%. So a fifth of the energy that we use is electricity.
Yeah. Do you think they know that, though? Because I put this to MPs quite a lot. I put this to people. Do you know that when you talk about this stuff, this is not, we're not going to replace the fossil fuels, which are 80% of our energy needs, with wind turbine electricity? We're just not, are we?
No, and they don't, and this is so disappointing, right? So I've made this offer on X recently. I've said I will offer a free hour of training to any MP or peer that wants it. Several have signed up and approached me. I've already done a few. Not a single Labour Party member has reached out.
There you go. That tells you everything. I hope you'll come on again. Catherine Porter, independent energy analyst. So appreciate your knowledge, your expertise. Claire Pissell, this is the thing, people don't actually know. So I'm genuinely of the view Ed Miliband and his advisors haven't got a clue what they're doing. That's my biggest worry.
It's frightening, isn't it, that no Labour MPs have signed up, and you would have thought they'd want that information to be given to them so they can help their constituents. Just a thought.
Yeah, don't demand bailouts when you're also voting for policies which require us to have bailouts.
Yeah.
Ta-da! 10:47 is the time. Love to hear your thoughts on that. Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Maybe you want to get in touch with your local MP and say, get in touch with Catherine Porter on social media and she'll give you a little lesson so you understand this stuff. Up next, we're going to talk to the former Royal Navy Commander Tom Sharp, OBE, about what on earth is happening in the Strait of Hormuz. Is there a peace deal on the plan? And what should Britain's involvement be? That's all up next. This is Talk.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning and unfortunately conflict. This is Talk War and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 10:50 is the time. Let's talk to my next guest now about what on earth is going on with that Iran conflict. Former Royal Navy Commander Tom Sharp, OBE, joins us. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. We're told that Trump is seeking a one-month ceasefire in Iran, that he's posted a 15-point peace plan. He's in talks with the Iranians, or has been, will be in Pakistan. The Iranians seem to be denying all of this. Who do we believe? What's going on?
It's very hard to keep track of, isn't it, with Iran now saying he's negotiating with himself. There's no real detail on the 15 points that may or may not look a little bit like the ones we had before this whole conflict started. I don't know is the frank answer. What I do know is that we're at a crossroads here. If we maintain the status quo, Iran isn't necessarily winning, but they are achieving their end state. They're ensuring regime survival and they are controlling the Strait of Hormuz. Those are their two macro end states in all of this, and they're achieving it. Doesn't mean they're winning, but it means they're achieving their end states. Yeah. We, on the other hand, are not achieving ours. Actually, of course, we don't quite know what they are either. And they differ between the US and Israel, and they certainly differ between those two and everyone else. So with no definable political or even military end states, how do you define what success looks like? But I know it's not what's happening now.
Well, indeed, I mean, Donald Trump was saying regime change wasn't one of the aims, but he wanted Iranian people to take this opportunity to themselves achieve regime change. But then he has mentioned changing the regime. So this is regime change. Well, that's not quite the same thing. But at the time we're talking about peace plan and talks, at the same time, bearing in mind when there were negotiations going on, America was planning, it would appear, these attacks with Israel. But at the same time, we've got the US Marines on their way. Their job would basically be, everyone expects, to seize Karg Island in the Strait of Hormuz. This is where 90% of Iranian oil is basically exported from. That would have a massive impact in terms of Iran's ability to fight this war. But there does seem to be a lack of strategic planning in terms of, surely people at the Pentagon, surely someone was saying, hey, the first thing Iran's going to do is not just fire missiles back, they're going to stop oil coming and gas coming out of the Strait of Hormuz, and that will be a way of strangleholding the West, and that's going to affect our war effort. Surely they should have secured that strait before anything else.
I agree, and having worked on this plan many years ago, the strait was fundamental to it, and the risk to it was very clear. And Iran had really engineered themselves over 30 plus years to do exactly what they're doing. But I think there was a genuine belief that this was a Venezuela type operation. Yeah. They could go in, smash the leadership up, smash and grab, call that regime change. As you say, it's not changing the regime, it's changing the people in the regime. And they're two very different things. Yeah. And I think this just all got muddled. And the Venezuela thing's important as well, because whilst that was going on, all those forces, military forces like the USS Ford and all the others, were not in the Eastern Mediterranean when the uprisings in Iran were at their peak. At the moment where you could have found a way to perhaps social engineer an uprising that succeeded as opposed to one that was brutally repressed, US forces were in the wrong place doing the Venezuela thing. So I think there's just a whole multitude of errors here that's led to what was a very clear set of documents about how this would play out, not making it into the White House decision-making.
But again, even if you are hoping for a Venezuela-style, victory, quick operation and victory, you should plan. You plan for the worst. You hope for the best, but you plan for the worst. And you said you've been involved in strategic planning. In terms of things, are the failures on the British side? I mean, this is my opinion that Keir Starmer arrived at a position that largely the British people seem to support, of not really being involved and not joining the American strikes, but acting defensively by a process of dithering rather than decisive leadership. But the fact that we were given 11 days notice of the operation beginning, the fact that the whole world was given notice of the operation by this huge movement of this naval fleet by the Americans, the fact that HMS Dragon only arrived this week at Cyprus 3 weeks after our RAF base was attacked there, does that tell us that we are just simply, we're surplus to requirements militarily in that area, but that we are simply not able to defend our own interests anymore?
I think there's two parts to this. Firstly, similar to America, there was confusion in our political direction. We didn't know whether we were in, out, half in, supporting flights from our bases or not, even though those were constantly going on. And we ended up in a sort of messaging and decision-making cycle that, frankly, appeased very few people, but actually perhaps some of the people in the UK. So that's the sort of, it did mean that we were very slow out of the door. The difference between us and the US is that some of these decisions, particularly when it comes to the Navy, were forced upon us by just not having enough options. We should have historically we've had ships based in the Gulf. We've had ships based in the Mediterranean constantly for centuries, and now suddenly we don't at a moment where we need them the most. So we're caught in this trap, and not having enough ships and not having enough assets makes the decision making even more important, and we got it muddled.
Yeah, indeed. Now, you're a former Royal Navy commander. The former commander of Joint Forces Command, General Sir Richard Barrons, has talked about the British Army, and he's doing an interview with the BBC saying the British Army is now so small it could only seize a small market town on a good day. Now, he's one of the co-authors of the Strategic Defence Review. Basically, we are critically short of artillery and of men. Now, that is pretty poor. And he says also because of their, he says the armed forces that we now have, because of their size, he says, but also because of their sophistication, can make a very small contribution on land, in the air and at sea to an enterprise either led by the US or more likely a NATO undertaking. What it cannot do is anything substantial. Have we given up our place in the world as a player on the military front and on the diplomatic front by extension?
I think we have. I think the sight of an armada of French ships sailing on day one of this conflict, 10 of them, and we took 3 weeks to get one out of the door. And the general's absolutely right. I keep talking about the Navy, and the Dragon sort of thing is what represents how poorly placed we are. But it is defence-wide. It is the whole thing, with very few exceptions. Perhaps our special forces, but even they're very, very small. So the whole thing is eroded to the point where we lose credible offensive influence. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have influence. And there are things in the Gulf, for example, like UKMTO, the Maritime Trade Organization, like the Combined Maritime Forces, that we have the leadership of that. That's 40 countries in Bahrain that we run on behalf of the Fifth Fleet there. And there are others. We have the IMO based in London and Lloyd. So there are still levers of influence that we do have, but militarily they're minute. That doesn't mean they're not useful in terms of adding legitimacy to whatever's going on. But they're wafer thin. If we're asked to send ships to Hormuz now, I don't know what we have. Do we bounce on? Do we send Dragon on her way and say to the Cyprus, really sorry, I know we said we were coming here but she's off now. Yeah. These are the kind of decisions that our operators are being backed into making. Because of 30, 40 years of the business, as General Barron says, at the end of it, we can't defend a market.
Yeah, that so-called Cold War peace dividend, which is just simply not there anymore. Really good to talk to you. Thank you so much. So, Tom Sharp, ABE, former Royal Navy commander there. Claire Pisler, I know, military, very big interest of yours. Just very briefly, your reaction to what Tom had to say.
I think it's absolutely right to highlight the lack of defence spending, but also just the processes of getting people in as recruits is so appalling because we've subbed it out to the private sector. Yeah. We need to let those military chaps and chapesses choose their candidates.
Yeah,
it's a lot
and all the woke madness and get on with it. Yeah, again, this is just the British public say, well, we don't want money spent on defence that's going to raise our taxes. But you know what? When it's not there when we need it, I'm telling you, politicians, the public are going to punish you. And it's something that should be a cross-party issue as well. Keir Starmer refusing even to commit to when that 3% of GDP on spending, on defence spending. I mean, it should be double that in my view. But there we are. Anyway, lots more coming up. Love to hear your thoughts on everything we're talking about. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. Just fast approaching 3 minutes past 11 o'clock. This is Talk with the Home of Common Sense, and I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Whether you're listening on DAB Plus Radio, on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube, or your connected device, thank you so much for joining us today. If you've missed anything from the show's had some stonking guests in the last hour, do go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe, you never have to miss a thing at all. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be talking more about the warning for the Daily Mail, a warning it's middle-class families that will face subsidising an energy bailout for those on benefits. Actually, it's just anyone with a half-decent job, working families. That's pretty much everybody who bothers to go out to work a day. They're going to be funding a bailout for people who don't work. Now, we'll be happy to bail out some of the people who don't work because they're either elderly or they're disabled. They really, really can't work. A single mum just left a domestic violent home and trying to put food on the table for her kids. Absolutely, absolutely happy to pay taxes for that. And, oh, yeah, pay more taxes for that. But, no, not really happy to be bailing out people who could be working and are choosing not to, and yet that is what we're going to do. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs £1. Standard network rate message. Also going to be talking about those two men arrested over that Golders Green ambulance arson attack and the criticism of the London Mayor Sadiq Khan for failing to attend the site of that arson attack. He turns up to everything else. Pretty surprised by that. Also, social media bans and curfews on digital devices and time limits on apps are to be trialled on hundreds of teens in Britain to actually get some evidence about whether any of it works, whether it does any good. All in favour of that. We'll talk about all of that coming up. Delighted to say joining me for the chat today is Claire Pearsall, former Conservative Government Advisor. Morning once again to you.
Morning.
Really interesting conversation we did just have, actually, with the last two guests, Catherine Porter and Tom Sharp, at different ends of where we are in terms of the Iran crisis and how much that's impacting on our bills, but also our ability to defend ourselves and our interests, like the RAF base in Cyprus. But, I mean, I just want to come back to you on that extraordinary statement from General Sir Richard Barrons, the former commander of Joint Forces Command. And he's a co-author of the Strategic Defence Review. Knows what he's talking about is a fair summary of his CV. Yes. And he says the British Army is now so small it could only seize a small market town on a good day. Now, I'm sorry, we're supposed to be, I mean, we're not America, we're not China, we're not China. I get that. And you know, I don't really want us to be the world's policeman, other than the fact that if we're not going to help America do it, then China and Russia are going to do it. You know, I mean, that, you know, would you rather it was us or rather it was them? But that's a national humiliation. But not just that. That is scary because if we can't defend our interests abroad and we can't actually defend our seas, our land here, we are at risk. And the countries that are a threat to us know that.
Exactly, and if they see a weakness, they're going to exploit it.
They already are.
Yeah, so if you've got a military which essentially can only just about take half of, you know, Romsey, a market town in the south of the UK, it isn't going to help when the rest of the country is under attack. But we need to look at defence spending, we need to look at budgets, we need to look at recruitment and getting young people into the armed forces. We're meant to be recruiting more and more. John Healey, the Defence Secretary, keeps telling us he wants more people in. Yeah. But there's no money in order to do so. So what are they playing
exactly.
at?
I mean, I'm thinking there might be some towns and cities I wouldn't mind if they were taken. I'll tell you what, though, whoever it is, good luck taking Newcastle. Good luck. Ain't going to happen. Middlesbrough, Liverpool, not going to happen, guys. Not going to happen. No, but genuinely, but it is. I mean, we'd laugh about it, but it is genuinely a massive cause for concern that we are just not able to protect ourselves. This is the first duty of government, and I've talked about this many times on the show. And this is the issue that it's an easy thing to cut because people don't see it. Yeah. Until they need to have it there, and you can't just go, oh, and now we're going to have an aircraft carrier. I'm just going to pop down. To Woolies. That shows me age, doesn't it? It's not Woolies, is it? No, but where are you going to put a pound stretcher? I don't know. Going to pop to Tesco's. I'm just going to get myself an aircraft carrier. No, these things take like 10 years to build. They cost billions. These things are not an option. You need to be planning all the time for the fact that at some point in the next 10 years there might be a war. And goodness me, for the last 10 years, last 20 years, this was always a likelihood. Have they been paying attention? Do they read the papers, these people?
Well, clearly not. But it's also the indecision of governments that make manufacturers of things like drones and a different kind of armaments, they go elsewhere where someone else is going to make the decision, have the check ready to rock and roll, and off they go. Whereas the UK is going, oh, well, we might spend, we might not.
Let's form another subcommittee about it.
Yeah, let's have a nice discussion. Let's have a round table.
The reality is, as Ukraine discovered, and as we've seen from Ukraine, they're now offering drone technology to Arab states in the Middle East. The reality is that, I mean, we helped with a lot of that, to be fair. We've been helping them and training them over the years since the invasion of Crimea in 2014. But war is, the handmaid of necessity, isn't it? It's just, the ability of countries to ramp up their military production when the threat is there. Is there. But you know what? We could ramp it up right now. That would not only be a good thing for industry, it'd be a good thing for jobs, it'd be a good thing for tax receipts. It would do. This is what we should be doing, and it would secure our country. And the best way of making sure your country is secure is to have the military ability and willingness to use it, which says to anyone coming for you, whether it's a cyber attack or industrial espionage or spying or terror attacks, Iran, is responsible. It puts them off.
It does, and we used to be a really great country at doing that, of coming together and finding a solution. And we are very good as a nation. But at the moment, everyone's just sort of sitting back and thinking it's someone else's job, and therefore we don't have to be bothered.
Yeah, and the thing is, we actually do pay people called civil servants, supposed to be the first-class people in the country.
And they're not.
You work with a lot of them, work with them in the Home Office, and they're supposed to be the people who are behind the scenes are saying to the government, yes, I know I know this is going to be popular because you want to give nurses a bigger pay rise, but actually you need to be spending money on another submarine, sir. And that's what they need to be telling them.
And that's it. And you get all of the people then get a bit sort of pearl clutching, going, oh, we can't give the nasty arms industry any money. It's terrible. And it's like, do you want to be protected or not? Because that's what it comes down to.
But these are also the first people who say, like, oh, you're going to send the army into rescue these people. No, because we haven't got one. Because they're too busy trying to defend, as you say, Rumsey. And they can't even do that. Right, let's go back to the conversation I was asking people to get in touch with, these working families you have to foot the bill for Rachel Reeves's energy bailout for those on benefits. We had this extraordinary statement from Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, yesterday. I mean, some of us managed to stay awake watching it back after the show, but I read some of the details when we were on air yesterday. And she's pledged support, she says, for those who need it most amid fears the Iran conflict could trigger a crippling hike in energy bills this winter. And we saw that during the Ukraine war, didn't we, when prices were looking at, £4,000 to a normal family home, and they capped it at £2,500. A huge bailout. I mean, people, let's face it, bills haven't come down that much since then. We're kind of stuck with this. We've got the predictions from the boss of Shell saying that Europe could face a fuel shortage within days because they're just not getting through. We've got all this instability. We don't know what's going on at the Strait of Hormuz right now, and we've also got the boss of the US financial giant BlackRock, and he's saying very, very clearly the price of oil hits $150 a barrel, it will trigger a global recession. This is Larry Fink again. Someone who knows what he's talking about. Now, you could say this is scaremongering, or these are people who pay attention. The reason why they are billionaires is because they pay attention to this stuff. They know what happens. But we're in a situation where we might be offering an energy bailout for people. But part of that, and as we spoke to this energy expert, Catherine Porter, is a lot of what we pay, whether it's at the pumps or whether it's on our heating bills, is actually about it's taxes, VAT, but it's also subsidies for the renewables, which we keep being told by Ed Miliband are cheaper and more reliable than fossil fuels, even though that's blatantly provably untrue. And I think we need to stop prosecuting politicians for telling us such blatant lies. But we're going to end up having to bail ourselves out with our own money. Bailing out the poorest people who are not contributing, people, a lot of them who could be working. Somebody, your anxious 22-year-old on a Monday morning, and we're going to be bailing out their heating bill when people are really struggling. And it's all down to abject failure of government policy for the last 20 years.
And the thing that will make the biggest difference if you take that VAT off and you take those green levies off, and you've reduced that by half already. So why aren't we looking at that? Why aren't we looking at those kind of things? Fuel duty. I hate it every single time I have to go and put petrol in my car, and I have to use my car. I'm one of those people that lives in the countryside. And it's
How very dare you get around and go to work. How absolutely. Dare you, Claire?
And the
killing the planet.
The International Energy Agency would like me to use public transport to preserve the fuel. Well, good luck finding it.
How long would it take you to walk to a bus stop to get to another bus, to another train, to another bus?
I could walk to a bus stop. I wouldn't get a bus. It's a 40-minute walk down to the train station, which is all right going downhill. Coming up, not so much.
Not so much, yeah. At night, woman on your own,
exactly.
on narrow roads.
Dark, not lit.
It's almost like there's a reason why people have cars.
Shocker.
I mean, what do we think? But this thing, I mean, again, when anyone says to me, like, oh, you know, use less energy, it might be short, I just think, frankly, do one.
Yes.
2 fingers, sort of. Okay, I live in a first world country, the 21st century.
Yeah.
I'll use as much sodding energy as I sodding well want to. Decided that sodding is the acceptable word on the radio. It's not the word I'm thinking. You'll probably have guessed that. It's such an insult. Oh, we all need to pay back. No, only because of your stupid policies. I would like us to have blackouts. I'm at that point. I would like us to have the blackouts that this energy policy deserves us and will lead us to, so that people have a wake-up call. We can't keep the lights on. And it doesn't matter how many windmills we buy from China and made in coal-fired factories and shipped over here. Doesn't matter how many we have. We're not going to keep the lights on and the heating on because of that. We're not going to wean ourselves off after our reliance on energy, you know, on petrostates and tyrants. America and Norway is where we get our oil and our gas from.
Terrible tyrants, the Norwegians.
It absolutely, it's infuriating. And the fact that Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves could be yapping on about a possible bailout, no details yesterday about who would get it, and we're not in that state of play yet. And I really do think energy bills need to be going cripplingly high before they should even think about any help. We have to live with the reality that we live in a world like this, and the government cannot bail out everything. Why? Government doesn't have any sodding money. It's our money. But the fact that they are responsible for the policies. Amazing stat I discovered yesterday. So France and Germany, other similar-sized countries. France very secure with their nuclear energy. Germany has had an insane net zero policy for years. They're gradually getting rid of it, and just because they've finally woken up to the fact it's destroyed their industrial heartlands and their economy. Germany does that, you're in trouble. But Germany and France both have about 90 to 100 days worth of gas stores. So there's gas storage, and they have gas storage, so they'll be able to sort of ease, the impact of any spike over the short term. They've got that gas storage. We have the ability to store gas for 2 weeks. We have currently, at the current time, 2 or 3 days worth of gas stored. What the actual? We are not a serious country. This is a country that cannot react in a crisis, does not plan, does not have any. There is just no fallback. I mean, this is such an abject lack of governance by the politicians and the civil servants.
It is. It's a massive dereliction of duty that you haven't provided for your country. You've run stocks of things down. You said we don't need to store it. And Ed Miliband saying we can generate all this power. Yeah, we can generate some power. You can't store it. We don't have the battery storage facilities.
We don't currently have the network to.
We don't have the grid capability and capacity, so we can't do that. So it's not going to make any difference. And if it's too windy, like it was last night, they will turn off the windmills again, won't they? We know that.
It's genuinely painful. It
is.
It really is. How do they not get it? I'm hoping quite a lot of this comes up at PMQs, which is the last one before the Easter recess. They get another holiday. They take more holidays than I do. That's how many holidays they get. But PMQs coming up at midday. Peter Cobb will be in as well with you to give a bit of analysis on that. Where do you think we are in terms of Donald Trump's talks that are happening or were happening or maybe weren't or maybe aren't happening or maybe won't happen? This 15-point peace plan. He loves a point peace plan, doesn't he? I'm surprised it's not always the same number, like he had a favourite number. Iran basically apparently denying everything.
I mean, what a world to be alive at the moment. You're trying to work out which one of them is telling the truth. And I think at the moment, neither are being entirely honest with us. But the 15-point peace plan is interesting on many levels. A lot of it is regarding nuclear capability. But the return, Iran would get the full lifting of sanctions imposed by the international community, and the US would help with its civilian nuclear program. That's about it.
They don't
so
need a civilian nuclear program.
No, they don't.
They've refused to do that already anyway, haven't they?
They have. A lot of these things were already decided over a year ago, and their capability for nuclear weapons was stopped in 2015. So these things have already been on the table.
Well, we've been told that. I don't believe that for a moment. They've apparently announced they've got a whole load of enriched uranium to 60%.
But
you
again,
need 3% for a nuclear power station.
But again, how much do we believe them? I don't want to disbelieve that because I think they're dangerous, and I don't want them to have any of that.
I don't want them to even have a single ballistic missile that they can then send to Israel or indeed RFAC Qatari. I mean, interesting talking to Tom Sharp, a former senior military, a naval officer, and he was just talking about how Iran at the current time they basically achieved the regime is still there. And they've got control of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, is there this likelihood these US Marines, thousands of them heading over, they've basically got their own Navy and Army, equipment, and they're going to be arriving in coming days, weeks, that actually this is all about getting, waiting for them to arrive to then seize this Karg island. We're all now learning so much more about Iranian oil exports. 90% of their oil export production facilities basically come through Karg Island, which is just a little island just sort of further up from the to the west of the Strait of Hormuz in the Gulf. And basically, if they can seize that, which I'm sure the US Marines are perfectly capable of doing. I mean, this is an amazing force. Then that's a bit of a game changer. But why weren't they already in place?
Yeah.
Why were the Straits not already? Was the Strait not already?
I think it's a really difficult place. I think people are now understanding the power Iran has over that particular waterway. And most people will just think, well, can't you sail through it? And the short answer is no, you can't. We don't know what mines are there. We don't know what's in there. And the UK doesn't have that much capability. But I would have assumed that the US military would have had people out there ready to go a lot quicker.
You'd like to think there has been a failure of strategic planning on this. That is absolutely enormous. I mean, and the impact on the world economy, extraordinary. Let's talk about things further back home. 2 men have been arrested early hours of this morning over the Golders Green arson attack on those that ambulance service funded by the Jewish community. The 2 men are aged 47 and 45. Arrested on suspicion of arson with intent to endanger life. 2 different addresses in northwest London and central London. Those 4 ambulances, by the way, already replaced again by the NHS. I don't know why the NHS London Ambulance Service has got a spare 4 ambulances that aren't used. I mean, I think there's well over £1 million already donated. I mean, I think a lot of people would have wanted to donate. Wouldn't have just been people in the Jewish community to make just a statement. And again, still got that absolute not. I mean, I just said on yesterday's show, social media is absolutely vile at the moment. It doesn't matter what I post, I'm just inundated with the most horrific anti-Semitic memes and tropes. And the number of people going, oh, well, the Jews fund their own ambulance service, it's available. It's funded by the local Jewish community, but it's available to everyone in the area. I know this because I used to live in the area, okay? They absolutely are available to everybody. It's just extraordinary. But I think you and I are both saying, obviously you have to be careful legally. These people have been arrested, they've not been charged. People are certainly innocent until proven guilty, if there is any charge brought. But I think most of us would have been surprised, having looked at that CCTV footage of 3 men arriving and then 3 men running away from the scene after that arson on those 4 ambulances, that 47 and a 45-year-old. Given that, most crime, we've got general crime statistics, you're largely looking at people much younger than that, young men. Are responsible for the vast majority of crime in this country. I'm wondering if this raises more questions about who might have been behind this, given that an Iranian-backed group has on Telegram claimed that they were responsible.
And that's it, and that'll be really interesting to see if those claims of this particular group having any interest in it are stood up and they are true. It just, then you start to look at how wide will that go? How many people are involved with that? Because if you're looking at basically middle-aged men, how many more have they got in that age range and in that group, and how big is their network across the country? And I think that's a more worrying aspect, that we haven't seen anything like that previously.
What do you make of Sadiq Khan, the London mayor? He's been criticised for not visiting the site. He was described as a disgrace yesterday for failing to attend the scene, and we had West Streeting, the Health Secretary, turn up, and numerous other political leaders went to the scene. I mean, an interesting choice, and again, I like to think he would. Well, I'm pretty sure he would have turned up at other events, but we are seeing this sectarian divide across British politics. I've heard people go, oh, you never talk about, anti-Muslim violence. I speak out about any violence against anybody for any reason, let alone their religion, their ethnicity. But the reality is there has been an increase in, say, anti-Muslim attacks and abuse since, let's go with a random date, I don't know, October the 7th, 2023. But the increase in attacks on the Jews are off the scale compared to that, but also in terms of the number of attacks per number of people in the country, there's no doubt at all that the scale of attacks on the Jewish community is far, far greater. Not a single one is justified against anybody, but I just simply do not see the same abuse. But I also, by the way, I see the police responding very differently to those different crimes. Most of us were just stunned that anyone has been arrested over this Golders Green attack.
And so quickly. I mean, I think Sadiq Khan makes a big thing of London being a community and everyone's together, but not really turning up for a part of the community that gets hit on a frequent basis and people are scared to go out.
I think he knows he would have been heckled and booed.
Yeah, but he needed to go there anyway.
Like David Lammy at that memorial for the Heaton Park, the synagogue attack.
Sometimes you need to just go out there and face down that.
But also, should you not say, look, I would rather not be heckled or booed, but I wonder why people are heckling and booing me. Maybe there's
a reason.
There's been some criticism like, oh, why are you not speaking out about? There was an Al Jazeera journalist who went out to the site and he was he faced an angry sort of mob of people. Well, he had local Jews, local area, questioning him and telling him to go away, saying Al Jazeera out. Given that Al Jazeera is a state-run, is the Qatari state-run media and perpetrates, it's got English channel, English version, and it's got the Arabic version. The Arabic version perpetrates the worst sort of stirring up of hatred of Israel and pro-Islamist views. Qatar has been playing everybody for a long time. Al Jazeera is a bad player in this. I can completely say, to compare that with, say, the Jewish Chronicle turning up is simply not a fair comparison.
No, it isn't, but I also think sometimes that people like that need to be out there so they understand quite the level of anger directed towards them, and then hopefully that might change an attitude. I doubt it will in their case.
Is anything going to change the NHS? We've had Wes Streeting giving a speach today again. No, more reform.
Here we go.
Oh, more NHS reforms. Yeah, I mean, just treat the people who come in quickly. Come out. Mind-blowing idea. You need to hire more staff, you need to treat people quicker, get the people who are doing your paperwork, frankly, fire a lot of them and start again, because frankly, you're talking about third world paper pushers in the NHS. I mean, literally just hopeless. But NHS satisfaction is improving, and he's been out celebrating that. He does say there's a lot more to do, to be fair to him, but he's saying he's positive. We have gone from, this is true, 70% satisfaction with the NHS back in 2010, down to 21% before the in 2024, and now it's up to 26%. Only a quarter of people are satisfied with the NHS. I mean, I'm always blown away by the people who are satisfied, even if I do get good treatment. Anytime I don't get good treatment or I don't bother, I mean, I've had to get physio. I've got a knee injury. Didn't even occur to me to bother my GP about it. No. What was the point? I'll be sitting on a waiting list for months and months. I need it dealt with straight away. I got an online appointment and then I had an in-person appointment within one day and within one day. It's paid for by private health insurance. But I need my knee fixed. But most people can't afford private health insurance.
No.
And that's the unfair thing.
It absolutely is. I think that I was not impressed with the NHS when I broke my pelvis.
Ow.
I had to.
Were you falling off horses?
I did.
Well, there you are then.
So it's my own fault.
Yep.
But the physio appointment I was offered was a telephone consultation. And you think, well, you can't see how I'm standing if I'm talking to you down the phone. So I
not
paid,
even a video consultation.
Not even a video one, just a telephone call.
That was someone in their PJs.
Absolutely. So I paid out to go privately to get it done because I wanted to be up and moving around.
Yeah, because you didn't have any choice.
I don't have a choice.
You actually didn't have a choice.
To go to work.
And that's the reality. I mean, again, it's catastrophically low, that approval rating. I don't think it's ever going to go up again properly because people are now a little bit. We've realised just how bad the NHS is, and the problem is not the people, a lot of them doing the jobs actually on the front line who are working their hardest, but it is the management. And here's another issue. Just finally, before we go to a break, is that we've got the UK Health Security Agency was first alerted of the of one of the cases of meningitis by the Queen Elizabeth Queen the Mother Hospital in Margate in Kent on the afternoon of Friday the 13th of March. They didn't, by the way, the patient walked in on the Wednesday, was tested for meningitis, and then on the Friday they bothered telling the UKHSA, and on Sunday the UKHSA bothered telling the union, the student union and the student and the university and the nightclub from where it looks like that this was, ground zero. People will have been out partying on Friday night and Saturday night, not knowing about this meningitis outbreak. They are required by law, they are required to notify a suspected meningitis case, not one that they have shown categorically beyond belief is definitely there. Now, Wes Streeting's been out about today, and he says it's unacceptable that this wasn't done. OK, so if it's unacceptable, someone failed to do their job, so they need to be sacked. I don't understand. We need to have accountability. Your job is to prevent an outbreak by notifying quickly, and you don't do that, as we are required to do. Whoever's job it was, and if it isn't one person's job, that's a problem. Shouldn't be a committee. Doctor says, we think this is a meningitis case, we're going to treat that. Message goes up to bosses. Bosses, call the HSA that moment. That's what they should do, not wait 2 days. We lost 4 days. We lost four days.
And also a bunch of students who went home because it was Mothering Sunday, so they'd all gone home, so they'd all spread around the germs a little bit further out, away from Kent, and made more people potentially ill.
Made people ill. People have lost limbs as a result of that. Someone needs to be sacked. It's accountability.
Lessons learned. That's what we're here.
Don't you'll make me say bad words. 11:28, it's time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all the topics we talk about. In particular, working families have to foot the bill for that bailout for those on benefits, which Rachel Reeve is promising if we do see energy bills go sky high again, as we saw in 2022. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. That's the number to get in touch. This is Talk.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, welcome back. 11:31 is the time. Let's get straight to your calls. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Sean is in Bridlington. Sean, you want to talk about the energy bailout, don't you?
Yes, Julia. I'm absolutely sick to the back teeth of hearing Miliband going on spouting garbage all the time. Yeah. Particularly this thing about new drilling won't make any difference to prices.
No.
I've got a simple solution. We're not drilling in Jackdaw and the Rosebank fields at the moment. I live on the East Coast. Right. So, solution that serves everybody. We allow new drilling. We encourage the oil companies, the drilling companies, to do the investment by dropping the tax on the profits down on the gas from 78% to 20%.
Yep.
They then are contracted to, they're contracted then to supply that gas to Britain, which they do anyway because it's a pipeline, at a price, a wholesale price that reflects that discount. That way, the government's getting tax money it's not getting now. we're getting investment, we're getting jobs, and we're getting a reduced price of gas.
Could you
also
please be working government? Please, Sean, please.
Well, I'll let you tell us the secret. I've applied to be a parliamentary candidate for a certain party.
I've got a funny feeling it's not the Labour Party.
Funny feeling it isn't, no.
I mean, but that seems pretty obvious to me. That would work. It is fascinating when he keeps saying, well, it wouldn't make any difference. It's like, remember Nick Clegg back in, 2010, saying, there's no point building a nuclear power station. We wouldn't have that power online until 2022. Oh, that would have been useful in 22, wouldn't it?
Well, the only solution it doesn't satisfy is Ed Miliband's fanatical religious zealotry. Apart from that, it solves every problem.
Absolutely. Sean, I love it. Thank you very much indeed. Peter is on the line in Yorkshire. Peter, what do you want to say?
I'd like to say something about the oil crisis.
Yep.
In California, they have regulated and taxed their refineries such that 3 refineries will shut by April.
Yeah.
They will need to import 400,000 equivalent per day barrels of refined products.
Yep.
We are similarly, we've lost 2 and we will lose 3.
Yep.
And that we will need to import 350 to 400,000 barrels equivalent per day from abroad.
Yeah.
In a time when we've got the worst thing in the world happening.
Yep.
And this lot don't have a clue about what to do.
No, they really don't. I'm genuinely scared. And the fact they came into power with apparently a plan, and then they went and asked the various different organisations, what is your plan for this? Like, hold on a minute. You said you had one. It's genuinely scary. Peter, thank you for that. Sean as well. We're going to take a quick break right now, and then we're going to be talking to former Labour Special Advisor Kevin Marr about this bailout on energy, and also Shabana Mahmood's immigration reforms facing yet another setback. You'll never guess what. Yeah, it involves human rights lawyers. Of course it does. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back. It's 11:35. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, and this is Talk. Let's turn our attention to my next guest, Kevin Marr. He's a former Labour Special Advisor. He's now Associate Editor of Labour Uncut. A very good morning to you, Kevin.
Good morning, Julie. How are you doing?
Very well indeed. Thanks for joining us. Looking forward to paying other people's energy bills more than we already do through our taxes anyway. But what do you make of the announcement from Rachel Reeves yesterday that, the big picture rather than the detail of if there is going to need to be a bailout for energy costs for people, then it's basically going to be going pretty much to people on benefits. The Mail have said it's middle-class families will foot the bill. The reality is, of course, is any hard-working family will be paying more taxes to foot the bill, because she says she's not going to borrow money to do this, so the money's going to have to come from taxes. Is that fair?
Well, she's on about targeted support, so i.e. no big, generous, above, across the board kind of support on energy bills. And of course, touch wood and cross our fingers and stroke rabbit's ears or whatever, that actually the situation in Iran and the Straits of Hormuz levels off, and actually by the end of the year, God willing that we're not in a parlous state where this is even necessary. But if it is, she's on about targeted support to those who need it most. And we've got to remember, of course, that that includes pensioners and people on benefits who are hard-working families. Let's remember, we're in a situation in our country these days where people who go out to work and do try very hard are still reliant on state support because their wages are so low. So I don't think it's unreasonable to target support to some of these people. This isn't just about dole dossers, Julia.
No, but when Gordon, I like to point out, when Gordon Brown was Chancellor under Tony Blair, he basically put everybody on the payroll by the working tax credits and pushed us into that situation. And when you import some 10 million more people to be workers in this country, you do tend to push down wages, funnily enough.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, we've had 30 years of bad policy where we've tolerated far too many low-paid jobs that do require some level of state support. You're right, absolutely right. And there's situations like this when people are really, really pressed, that anomaly and that failure of policy comes to the fore. But we've got to remember it is a mixed picture. This is pensioners, this is people on benefits, and this is people who are going out to work who will need support later in the year. But I think the Treasury is probably in the position, and Rachel Reeves is probably in the position of, can I just deal with one crisis at a time, and hopes that actually by the end of the year that some of this isn't even necessary.
Well, yeah, we can hope, but again, I mean, I don't think we're going to be, well, fingers crossed, we're not going to be in the position where we were back in 2022. But a lot of very clever people who know about this stuff fear that we could be if we've got the sort of we've got Larry Fink, we've got a head of Shell warning that things could go horribly wrong very, very quickly. And it doesn't look like there is a plan. But again, do you understand though? Like an awful lot of people, they'll be sympathetic of people who are disabled or elderly and people who need to be bailed out. But actually, there is a real anger now growing of ordinary working people who go out every day, doing often low-paid jobs. Aren't the greatest fun, most rewarding jobs in the world, and they are paying a fortune in tax, and they're paying a fortune in their bills. The council tax is about to go up, the energy bills, feeding your home is going to go down a small amount in the next 3 months, but everyone expects it will go up again then. They've never come down properly from that hike in 2022. They are struggling. And they're being told you're going to have to carry on paying for more and more people who, frankly, are swinging the lead, because no one believes for a moment that we've got all these millions of people who apparently are too anxious and depressed to go to work. I mean, no one believes that.
I mean, we're in an invidious position, which shouldn't even be, I suppose, theoretically possible. We're in a deep cost of living crisis, and we have been for several years. I mean, it's this pans back, rewind a few years, and we've obviously had a situation where real wages haven't risen since the 2008 financial crash. So we've been in a fug as a country for quite some time. But we've also then got an economy that isn't growing and is teetering, frankly, on the edge of recession at the moment. And these two things should almost cancel each other out. We've got inflationary pressures, cost of living crisis, bills going up, and we've also got an economy that's in the doldrums. It shouldn't happen like that. And unfortunately, we've got both of those things competing at the same time. I think you're absolutely right. I think if you take a step back and sort of say, this is one more kind of lash that the hard-working taxpayer is forced to endure because taxes are at post-war highs. We've got a state that's very inefficient and often ineffective, and we're paying more and more for it. People will be paying more and more for council tax. It'll be going up above the rate of inflation for less and less, fewer and fewer services. Councils don't run housing anymore. They don't run education anymore. You've got to ask the question, what do they run? They don't fix the road.
Hey, those rainbow-painted zebra crossings don't fund themselves, Kevin. They don't fund themselves. Can I ask you about something else? And there's a new development in the last couple of moments on this. The theft of Morgan McSweeney's phone. Now, he was the former Chief of Staff at the time, at the time he was the Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister of this country, working in Number 10. His mobile phone, he was on his mobile phone October the 20th last year, 10:30 at night, left a restaurant. He was on his phone speaking to someone, so his phone was open and not locked when someone on a bike came by, a man wearing a balaclava on an electric bike came by, swiped it and stole it. Okay. Now, we were told that as a result of his phone being stolen, that he was unable to release keep the messages that he'd exchanged with Lord Mandelson when all around the time of his appointment as a US ambassador, UK ambassador to the US. Interestingly, of course, this theft happened just a month after the Prime Minister sacked Mandelson, when more revelations came out about his close friendship with his best pal, the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. We were told, already came out yesterday, that the police did not investigate the theft of the phone. Apparently they took down the wrong address. They were too busy to speak to him, despite the sensitivity of the messages and the contacts on his phone. It has now been emerged in a Met Police statement that Morgan McSweeney did not tell the Met Police who he was or where he worked when he called 999 after his phone was stolen. They've released a transcript of the call, and they were not aware that who he worked for and the particular security risks associated with his device or material on it. He stated that it was a government phone. Now, it's extraordinarily massive failure on his part not to state that. As my guest in the studio, who's a former Conservative government advisor, Claire Pierce, has pointed out, you would normally be advising, he should be telling, the special protection, he'd be telling the police in number 10 about this. A lot of us, I think, are completely perplexed by the fact that the police didn't think this was worth investigating. Completely perplexed also the fact he was obviously able to maintain his contacts and get all that when he got his new phone. But miraculously was unable to keep his WhatsApp messages with Lord Manderson, because I know when I replaced my phone, it was all on the cloud and it was all just downloadable onto my new phone. So he's got one of those weird, crazy phones that can only do half of it and not the other half. This is looking horribly like a cover-up. I would say this is looking horribly like obstruction of justice or perverted the course of justice, serious criminal offences. What do you make of this?
It's absolutely shambolic. I mean, if you were to give those involved the benefit of the doubt, you would say that this feels like a very incoherent and incredible sequence of events. I mean, you're quite right.
Very unlucky sequence of events. Very unlucky.
Seemingly. I mean, if I was the chief of staff to the Prime Minister and somebody had pinched my phone while I was out, the first thing I would do would be to raise that with somebody in number 10, given the sheer sensitivity of and the fact that it may have been a targeted theft. So that would be, I think that would be the first instinct. It wouldn't be just to phone 999 or 111 or whatever. However McSweeney's made contact with the Metropolitan Police. I mean, yesterday's revelation was that the theft took place. I think it was recorded as in Belgrave Street, not Belgrave Road, which adds a level of kind of almost like comic incoherence to all of this. The Met don't come out of this brilliantly. There are 70,000 phones stolen every year, and I suspect it's a fairly common experience of people who've lost the phone that way, not to have the police take an awful lot of interest in it. But
they don't bother.
This is the chief of staff.
They're too busy not investigating all the other phone thefts to investigate the phone theft of the chief of staff to the Prime Minister.
Exactly. I mean, it's I mean, the point about politics and the point about handling crises and difficult situations like this is that you've got to be able to future-proof your position. What you're saying today has got to make sense tomorrow. It's got to make sense next Thursday. It's got to make sense in a month's time. And what we're seeing here is a failure of crisis handling 101. This is
I would have thought it would be unbelievable if he did not have his phone backed up in the cloud, and he didn't have, as one person has pointed out, find my phone. I've got it on my phone. I can find my phone if it disappears. Again, none of this adds up. It looks like a cover-up. I mean, other people talk about, we're talking, we've had lots of gates, haven't we? Free gear gate and all that. We're talking about, Watergate. This is a cover-up.
I mean, it doesn't look good. Let me put it
that way. You're being far more charitable.
Equivocally as that. But I mean, I read somewhere, and I'm the least techie person in the world. And if I was to lose my phone and try and sort it out again, I mean, my God, I'd just probably give up having a phone. But I saw somewhere that apparently, because it's a government phone, it isn't. The WhatsApp and some of the other apps, I presume, are not backed up, because that would require having a third-party server, which doesn't make an awful lot of sense to me, that you're then in the street with this thing where people can grab it and then have direct access to important information.
That sounds like a very, very silly policy to me, but there we are.
I mean, in the dim old days when I was doing a similar job, I mean, I had a very chunky BlackBerry in those days, and the way it worked there was that anything that would be possibly sensitive was kind of screened off by the office, frankly. If you're out and about with a BlackBerry, you just need it for messages and just need it for coordination, just to see a briefing.
You couldn't actually access it. Well,
but it doesn't give you access to your full inbox, and didn't give you access to, obviously there was no WhatsApp in those days. So I don't know whether I don't know what goes on.
WhatsApps have got many Yeah, WhatsApps have got many a government in trouble before you about Hancock. So just want to find you small matter, the usual, meat and two veg for many political shows these days. The Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, she's got this plan on immigration reforms. I mean, again, this is basically making the way, 10 years for the right to apply to be a British citizen, well, the right to effectively remain in Britain indefinitely. Oh, by the way, and they become eligible for things like benefits. Why they'd need them when, of course, they're a net contributor to this country is utterly bizarre. But her attempt is currently going to face a new setback. Migrant campaigns preparing to launch yet another legal challenge against even that change. This is particularly about those who've already arrived in the Boris wave, who would then not be eligible to claim it, even though they would have thought they would be eligible when they first arrived. You basically can't do anything in this country without the human rights lawyers stopping it, can you?
Well, seemingly, I mean, this is very dangerous because we've got a political system that's on a collision course with public opinion, particularly around immigration and the abuse of the migration system. And in a sense, Shabana Mahmood is on the side of the angels here. She's trying to do something about it. She's trying. Her reforms possibly aren't even tough enough, but she's certainly trying to do something about it in the way that lots of her predecessors haven't done. And we're getting all these kind of voices off. In the system, if you like, the human rights system trying to stop her. We've got Labour MPs apparently going to gang up on her and try and water down her proposals. I think we just need to accept we're in the last chance saloon here. Yeah. Because if something isn't done and the public demand is not satisfied, then that's a very dark place that we end up in. And people keep going on about, the rise of reform and all the rest of it, and it's the rise of the Fourth Reich, if you almost. But if we don't listen to the public, if we don't give in to their basic expectations about the kind of country we are, if we don't have a functioning system, a rational system that says if we wanted to take in some educated, experienced workers for a specific task, fine.
But otherwise, no. I'm going to have to end it there. I'm so sorry, Kevin. I'm massively over time. I so appreciate you joining us. I'm going to say a Labour figure talking an awful lot of sense, I'd like to say. We should have more of that. 11:48 is the time. Take a quick break. We're going to be talking about, a whole load of trials of teen social media bans and curfews. We'll talk about that up next. This is Talk.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, welcome back to the show. 11:51 is the time. Well, we've been talking about mobile phones with Morgan McSweeney, the former Prime Minister. The Prime Minister's, no, sadly, he is still the Prime Minister. The current Prime Minister's former Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, having his phone stolen. Very interesting. Also, another development on that. Police officers whose role it is to process reports of this phone being stolen. They did actually make 2 attempts to phone Morgan McSweeney, presumably on a landline that he gave them, and this was during working hours, and there was no answer from him. There we are. He was obviously very concerned about the theft of that phone, wasn't he? So unlucky, so unlucky. Well, talking of mobile phones, there's a lot of conversation lately about youngsters and mobile phones, social media apps and the like. Well, social media bans, digital curfews and time limits on apps are to be trialled in the homes of hundreds of UK teenagers. I'm all in favour of this. I'm really in favour of a little bit of a trial. Let's just see what the evidence is. It's a test led by the UK government. It's got 300 teens and involved, and they're going to have their social apps disabled entirely, blocked overnight or capped to 1 hour's use. Some also going to be seen with no changes at all to compare their experiences. It's going to run alongside that consultation the government's got right now, following in the footsteps of Australia making it illegal for under 16s to have access to many social media sites, basically to see if any of this actually works. Well, let's talk to former head teacher Tim Clark about this. Good morning to you, Tim.
Morning, Julia.
Thank you
Good
for
to see
joining
you
us.
again.
I'm very excited about someone actually doing a trial to see whether this actually has any impact. I think most of us would be of the view that it would have an impact, but I suppose looking at what are the various different things that would make the biggest change and would improve children's lives, what do you expect these trials will find?
Well, I totally agree with you, Julia. I think it's great that the government is actually doing some research on this before it simply introduces an absolute ban. Because it may be a case, I mean, I have no philosophical view or opinion that I'm not against a complete ban in any means. I see it as a way of protecting children. You know, we have age limits on alcohol, yeah, smoking and what have you. I see this as an extension of that. So I have no philosophical argument against having a complete ban. But as you've just said, the key question is, will it actually work? And it may be that less is more, that actually having fewer restrictions could end up having a bigger impact. And the reason why I say that is that you mentioned the Australian model. Obviously, it's early days. The Australian ban was only introduced, I think it was December, middle of December. So it's only been running for, what, 3 months. But the evidence so far is that the majority of parents in Australia have said it has had a positive impact. It's improved their kids' mental health. It's improved their kids' ability to socially interact. Yeah. But the worrying side of it is a third of parents have said it's made absolutely no difference at all because their kids have found ways round it. Yeah. And that is the real worry because I mean, you're talking to the most remedial, technophobic person in the world, so I certainly couldn't do this.
Yeah, but this is the trouble, isn't it? Actually, most teenagers are better at this stuff.
You get
a
tech-savvy teenager.
Yeah.
And the danger of that, of course, is they don't just circumvent the law. What they end up doing is exploring, say, the dark web, yeah, which is even more difficult to control, and then they end up being in more danger.
And we've seen the NSPCC here, Jared, saying, warning against that sort of ban because they say it could lead kids to a more dangerous place. Again, I see no reason at all why these big tech companies cannot adjust their algorithms and the like to make sure that the kids are not being pushed into bad things. But also, I have a bit of a question for quite a lot of those parents in Australia, and indeed many parents in Britain and elsewhere, about maybe you need to start doing your own job. I mean, I'm always fascinated by the number of parents who go, what can I do? My kid's on their phone. I don't know. Well, take their phone away. Do your job as a parent. I mean, I just find it absolutely extraordinary. It's never been an issue in our household. I know I've only got one. If I had 6, it wouldn't be an issue either, because I don't understand this idea that you have to be friends with your kid. You know what I mean? No, you do your job as a parent to give them a good life, and that a good life is not sitting on your phone the whole time. The main issue is most parents are sitting on their phones, and that's why they're quite happy for their kids to do so too.
Yeah, I mean, one interesting thing about the Australian model is that it hasn't, although they've banned TikTok and Facebook and various other social media outlets, they haven't banned games. And of course, computer games, they can be incredibly graphic, they can be incredibly violent, they can be sexualized. So in Australia, there is still nothing to stop a kid from staying up half the night, playing totally inappropriate games. So that's why I say I think it's only right that we look at the Australian model, and it needs to have more time, obviously, to develop. But I do think I have to congratulate the government on this. I do think it is the right thing, both to not only do trials, but to trial different
things. And exactly, and that's the fascinating. I mean, I'd love them to do it with whole school, like this entire school for 3 months will have this, and another school of similar demographics will do the same, and they see what the difference is. Because I'm loving the idea of us introducing the idea of evidence-based policy. We should do this more often. It would seem to me to be a good idea. But the thing that's interesting, that's philosophically different, I think, from an age limit for purchasing alcohol or purchasing cigarettes, again, and things like that, I completely support. However, this is stuff that you do on your phone all the time. This is stuff you do in private life at home. It's not so easy to police, and the only way to police it is in a way where you have to enable adults to identify that they are adults. You do that by proving you are, and that invades the privacy of adults. I'm perfectly happy to have the privacy of children invaded to protect them, but that's very different from someone saying, can you just show me some ID when you buy cigarettes and you look under the age of 25?
It is, but I think it is philosophically similar, because it's the idea of protecting those youngsters. And I say for me, it's not a philosophical argument, it's a practical argument.
Will it work?
If it doesn't work, is there any point doing it? Well, there might be. I think probably the nearest corollary you could have is the age of consent. I mean, we have the age of consent, but it is totally unenforceable.
Other than the fact that actually people are aware of the law, and it does.
And that's exactly simply having a law in itself
actually has a message. Fascinating.
Absolutely.
Former head teacher Tim Clark, thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining us. Claire Pissell, we've both got teenagers that are past the age where this would be relevant to them, but what do you think about these trials?
I think it's a really good idea for actually once they've come up with something that might give us a set of results. We are shocked, but it seems very sensible. Time limits also, which I don't think anybody takes into account.
No,
it's a
exactly.
really good idea.
And there are things that kids can do. You might think it's not the greatest way to spend your life. I know lots of parents who just limit, they're picking their sons, they're gaming to an hour a day. Right, you can do your off. You've done your homework, you can have an hour of gaming, and it's online with their mates, and it's a social thing. For me, so much that it's what you're not doing. You're not playing sport. You're not out with your mates having a laugh. You're not having eye-to-eye contact. You're not, making friendships. You're not talking to your parents. It's what you're not doing a lot of that time.
It's just as bad.
I do still think, and I do understand it's really hard for parents a lot of the time, but I do think a lot of parents simply aren't doing their job because it's an easy life for them.
Yeah, it makes them quiet, doesn't it? Keeps them away, and they can get on with their own lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very sad.
Yeah, I mean that's you see people sitting in restaurants, the cafes, and everybody, the whole family's on their phone, and then they'll go, "Oh, it's terrible. My kid's on his phone all the time." You think, yeah.
Look at you.
Yeah, he's just doing what you're doing, she said, with her phone in front of her, for work purposes. 11:59 is time. We're coming up to PMQs at midday. Interestingly, Nigel Farage has a question, second week in a row. We're going to take the exchanges between the Prime Minister and Kemi Badenoch. What's she going to go on? Who knows? We'll get the analysis from Claire Pissell and from Peter Cardwell up next. Stay tuned. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon to you. Welcome back to the show. It's 2 minutes past midday. This is Talk with a Home of Common Sense, and I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Whether you're listening on DAB+ radio, your smart speaker, watching on YouTube, or your connected device, great to have your company. Joining us right now, we're just going into Prime Minister's questions. It's the last one before the Easter recess. Yeah, these people take more holidays than I do. Imagine that concept. Chuckling in the background, as you'll hear there, is Peter Cardwell, Talk presenter, of course, who's in for the analysis alongside former Conservative Government advisor Claire Pearson. I'd like to point out, you're both fundamentally come from the Tory fold, but actually I'd like to say all three of us, we give a very honest appraisal of who does well, who does badly. Wasn't that impressed with either of them last week, I have to say, but I'm wondering what's going to come up. Is it Morgan McSweeney's phone theft? Is it going to be this energy bailout? A lot of criticism of Rachel Reeves' announcement yesterday. What do you expect, Peter?
I think Morgan McSweeney's phone has to come up. It's absolutely extraordinary. He didn't tell the police in the 999 transcript that we now have that is the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff.
So it might be relevant to his phone being stolen. It is an extraordinary thing.
Developed vetting, strap clearance, the Prime Minister's messages on there. Didn't mention it.
All I can say is they're incredibly unlucky for him to have his phone stolen a month after Mandelson was fired, and all those messages with Peter Mandelson were on the phone apparently can't be found. Incredibly unlucky.
We see them dropping into the North Sea.
Rotten luck.
True.
That's what it was. Rotten luck.
It looks very questionable, doesn't it? I'm wondering if Kemi Badenoch will actually come to that. I think she's going to be up to ask her first question in just a couple of moments. Energy bailout there looks very, very likely, does it not, to be one of the topics, because we've got the criticisms being made of what Rachel Reeves had to say yesterday, basically poo-pooing 2022's bailout. Actually, let's go live to Kemi Badenoch right now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I asked the Prime Minister 6 questions last week, and he didn't answer a single one. He has a duty to this House, Mr. Speaker, to answer the question. Let's see if he can do better this week. I'll start with a simple one. Will the Prime Minister approve the licences for Rosebank and Jackdaw gas fields in the North Sea?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, under statute, that is a matter for the Secretary of State, as she knows, because it's the same arrangements as were in place under the last government. Licences were granted. They were then struck down because of the defects in the process of the last government. But, Mr. Speaker, oil and gas is coming out of the North Sea 24/7. It will be part of the energy mix for many years to come. We fully support all existing oil and gas fields throughout their lifespan, and in November we made changes to extend to allow neighbouring fields to be exploited. But we need to take control of our energy prices. The only way to do that is through renewables. The party opposite used to make that argument. One of their senior figures in 22 said this: it's investment in nuclear and renewables that will reduce our dependence on fossil fuels and keep our consumer costs down. Who was that senior figure? The leader of the opposition.
This is not the day to be thrown out with a 2-week break coming.
Mr. Speaker, we can have renewables and oil and gas. He says it's a matter for the Secretary of State. He says it's a matter for the Secretary of State. I thought he was the Prime Minister, and he loves to hide behind legal process every single time. I wonder, Mr. Speaker, what a Director of Public... What? Have I...
Order. Mr. Yeltsin, you don't want to test my patience, I'm sure. Come back.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister loves to hide behind legal process. I wonder what a Director of Public Prosecutions would make of the defence. Sorry, I can't produce my WhatsApps. My phone's been stolen. The Jackdaw gas field could be up and running before winter. All that gas would be used here in the UK to heat 1.6 million homes. That is enough to power Norfolk, Suffolk and Essex put together. So will the Prime Minister approve the licences, or is the Energy Secretary running the government?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, legislation has been passed. It's absolutely clear that the quasi-judicial duty under legislation rests with the Secretary of State. I really think if she's going to put this challenge to me, she needs to read the legislation. That is the legislation that they applied for 14 years. It's exactly the legislation that they used to put the licences in place, which were then struck down because the process was defective. But, Mr. Speaker, let's be clear, when Russia invaded Ukraine, energy prices doubled. The 12-day war, oil prices hit £100 a barrel. In the last 4 weeks, because we're on the fossil fuel roller coaster, everybody has been held to ransom. The only way forward is to go further and faster on renewables. And the leader... Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition's approach is to outsource our foreign policy and let the US decide whether we go to war, to outsource our energy policy to Russia and Iran and let them set the price of energy. I will never do that because it's not in the British national interest.
Mr. Speaker, he is hiding behind so many people. He is the Prime Minister. He can make this decision today. He can. He can. He is so weak, he's the first person to be pushed around by the Energy Secretary. Let me remind him, Mr. Speaker, let me remind him who is on my side. The unions, yes, GMB, they're on my side. Tony Blair. Mr. Speaker, Renewable UK, the very people that he's talking about, they are saying drill in the North Sea. Centrica, Octopus Energy, even Labour MPs. Let me quote the Labour member for Pembrokeshire who says, offshoring our carbon emissions might give a sense of moral superiority, but it is simply impoverishing our communities. We agree. So why does the Prime Minister think he knows better than everyone else?
I'm going to have one more go. The legislation, the statute... The law prescribes the decision-maker. They know that. They should be embarrassed that she doesn't even... She's attacking me without having read the legislation. The legislation sets out who the decision-maker is. It's the Secretary of State. It is not the Prime Minister. It has to be the Secretary of State, and it's a quasi-judicial process, exactly the process that they ran for many years. And, Mr. Speaker, oil and gas is part of the mix for many years to come, but we do need to get onto renewables. But, Mr. Speaker, we're discussing this because of the war. We need to de-escalate. And that is, yes, we are. That is why I stuck to my principles not to join the war and to act in collective self-defence. I appreciate the Leader of the Opposition doesn't get that. She wanted to jump into the war without regard to the consequences and then do a mother of all U-turns, and now she's stranded without a thought-through position. And, Mr. Speaker, when she was asked at the weekend whether she approved of the war, she said, that's a difficult one. It certainly is if you've got absolutely no judgment.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to let the Prime Minister in on a secret. He's the Prime Minister. He can change the legislation. Hiding behind the Energy Secretary is pathetic. Mr. Speaker, under his Labour government, we buy half the gas we use from Norway. Last year, Norway's Labour government drilled 49 wells in the North Sea. That's what Norway's Labour government did. How many did Britain drill? 0. For the first time since 1964, under his government, Britain drilled no wells. Why is energy security the right policy for Labour in Norway, but the wrong policy for Labour in Britain?
Mr. Speaker, so now our attack is if you changed and passed some different law, you could take the decision which she's challenging me today for not taking. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, all that would do is to slow the process down. Oil and gas is coming out every day. There's a mix of that and renewables. But it's really important, Mr. Speaker, the most important thing to get energy security is to ensure we de-escalate this war. I know where I stand on this. We are not joining the war. She wanted to join the war. she didn't think through the consequences, and now she doesn't know where she stands on the most important issue facing this country at this time.
Mr. Speaker, the Norwegian Prime Minister is doing what is right for his country. If only our Prime Minister would do the same. Stopping all new drilling in the North Sea was a reckless promise when he made it before the election. In the middle of a global energy crisis, it is catastrophic. Experts are predicting a £300 rise in bills in July. Approving new licences would show he was serious about cutting bills. Why won't he do it?
Mr. Speaker, because of the action that we've taken, bills are coming down by up to £100 household bills next month. Then they will be capped for 3 months. That's what we're doing to protect households across the country. And who voted against it? The Tories and Reform, because they just don't get the impact on working people that we will protect.
Mr. Speaker, he says bills are coming down. They are higher than they were when he came into office. And he's talking about, he's talking about what they're doing to help with energy bills. Families and businesses will suffer from the spike in energy costs because of his decisions. He could abolish the green taxes on their bills. He could stop the fuel duty rise. We could drill our own gas in the North Sea. What's he doing? He is planning another giveaway to people on welfare. Yet again, he's taking money from those who do work to give to those who don't. First, we had the budget for Benefit Street. Now it's the bailout for Benefit Street. Doesn't this just prove that they've given up being the Labour Party and they're now just the Welfare Party?
Mr. Speaker, the spike... they're the ones that double spend on welfare, Mr. Speaker. They're the ones with a broken system. And when we tried to mend it, what did they do? They voted against it.
Order. Mr. Dewhurst, you're tempting my patience. Thank you, Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, she talks about the spike in energy prices. That's because of the war, which I say we shouldn't join, and she says we should join without following through on the consequences. And time again, she gets the big calls absolutely wrong. She wanted to drag us into the war. She got that wrong. She opposed taking control of energy security, and she got that wrong. She opposed our decision to cut energy bills, and she got that wrong. And she seriously thinks that'll make her relevant, and she's got that wrong.
Debbie Abrams.
Well, it was quite a heated exchange, wasn't it? Again, I think we expected we were going to be talking about where we are in terms of energy bailouts. The Prime Minister, an extraordinary defence, certainly for the first 3 answers, based on, it's not up to me, it's basically a statutory quasi-judicial role of the Energy Secretary, Ed Miliband, to decide whether or not that there is drilling for new wells, new exploration in the North Sea for oil and gas there. And it's kind of not up to me, which I think a lot of people thought was quite an extraordinary answer. I think a lot of his Labour backbenchers, and something Kemi Badenoch repeatedly picked up on, pointing out, but you're the Prime Minister. You get to decide these things. Come to you first, Peter Cardwell, in the studio talking about this and watching this. I mean, it was kind of a little bit excruciating. I felt a lot of my body clenching with sort of embarrassment that for some reason the Prime Minister thinks and thought it was worth saying out loud 3 times that his defence for there not being drilling for new oil and gas in the North Sea while Norway are doing loads of it and pumping it out and selling that oil and gas to us, that the defence is, but it's not up to me, it's up to Ed Miliband, who he appointed as Energy Secretary and can tell...
And tells what to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a classic Keir Starmer here. You've got Kemi Badenoch saying, this is a major issue for the country. Are we or are we not going to do this? Then you have Keir Starmer saying, she hasn't read the legislation, she hasn't done this, she doesn't know the process. This is the quasi-judicial process that they did.
It's like having your accountant in charge.
Nobody cares. And the fact is, do we know at the end of this whether Keir Starmer favours drilling or doesn't? And the answer is not really. He did say that oil and gas is going to be part of the mix for some years to come, and that's fine. But it was a really weird sort of civil servant-y answer. Even I wouldn't even call it a politician's answer.
No,
because he just hides behind the process all the time.
I know something that can be picked out, and again, that's one of the main criticisms people have of him, isn't it, Claire Pearsall? One of the things he said, if Kemi Badenoch said, he's the only person being pushed around by the Energy Secretary, who's not a person you think would ever have.
Although he pushed him around on Iran.
Well, absolutely, but he's not a person you would expect in daily life would normally get away with this. But the Prime Minister kept saying, we do know what he thinks, Peter, because he said the only way forward, the Prime Minister said, is to go further and faster on renewables.
Yeah, fair point.
But our audience know that that's not the answer, Claire.
Well, exactly, and I think we also need to point out that he's not the Messiah; he's just the Energy Secretary, and in this case, he's absolutely wrong on all of these items.
Don't you think Ed Miliband is the Messiah? Do you know?
Ed Miliband thinks he's the Messiah.
The bacon sandwich wielding assassin,
saving the world one wind turbine at a time.
Exactly, just don't invite him out for lunch. I think that he does have this belief that he's right, and all I've got here is some waffle, which was in relation to the answer that Keir Starmer gave, which was the very civil servant answer. And we don't need to know the ins and outs of how government works. This is Prime Minister's question. Tell us honestly.
This is a technicality.
Do you think this is good or not?
It's a technicality. It's like there are some things. It's like HS2 that under technicality there's one share in it, and it's controlled by whichever Secretary of State is in charge of it. But that
we don't care. We want to know.
That doesn't mean they actually own it. It's a technicality. You appoint the cabinet, and the cabinet do what you tell them. Otherwise, you sack them.
Yes.
Is he being held to ransom by Ed Miliband?
Yes, he is. And this is the.
You think that Keir Starmer wants to drill in the North Sea?
I don't think he knows what he wants to do. He's talking about, he said, renewables are the future. Then he says oil and gas will be part of the picture. Then he says it's Ed Miliband's decision. Now he's also in a position where Ed Miliband's telling him what to do on Iran, as are other members of the cabinet. Donald Trump says, are you going to do this or are you not? He says, I'll talk to my team. But he can't make a decision.
We're seeing more and more on this. I mean, we've got the two. With Rachel Reeves as well, the two worst people who were in charge at a time of crisis, just not able to make quick decisions. They don't think on their feet. Kemi Badenoch was talking about, it was a reckless promise to stop new licences before the election. It's catastrophic now, and if he really cares about working families and their bills, he would want to do something about this. And she says, this is now not the Labour Party, it's the Welfare Party. Look, we can see how this is playing out. We can see the impact, the local elections and the Scottish and Welsh elections coming up on May the 7th, and how the parties are splitting on these sorts of issues. But at the end of the day, this shouldn't be a party political matter. This is a matter, Claire, of absolute economic need right now.
And unfortunately, PM Hughes is the ultimate opportunity to land a punch, especially when it's the end of term. House rises tomorrow, so they want to get those headlines out there. They want to go into a local election campaign with their troops feeling good. So, no, you're right, it shouldn't be party political, but unfortunately, these headlines are going to stick. A bailout for Benefit Street, which Kemi Badenoch said. You can see that is going to form the headlines tomorrow morning on quite a lot of newspapers.
I can never work out whether the Daily Mail is writing her script or she's writing their headlines.
And Rachel Reeves said in her exact words that those who can afford more will pay more, as she put it. The most wealthiest, which isn't English, will pay more.
So she can't do maths or English.
That's it.
This is interesting. But again, wasn't it fascinating yesterday when Rachel Reeves was basically saying, we wouldn't do what the Tories did in 2022 that cost, the best part of 40 billion quid. At one point, could have had a price tag of 160 billion quid when Liz Truss announced that bailout for everybody to cap everyone's energy bills at £2,500 when they were actually rising to around the £4,000 mark. Well, not everyone's bills, the average bill. But basically sort of like dismissing this as utterly irresponsible, something that helped the wealthy people, the most wealthiest, as you say, rather than the poor. When in fact Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer said the exact opposite in 2022. They were saying it was absolutely vital to help everybody. They called for it sooner and longer. This is the thing, on every single of these policies, they've completely changed.
You can't accuse them of consistency, Julia. That would never do. They've obviously got to come up with their things, because Keir Starmer has principles, and his principles mean, as he says, that he's against the war in Iran. So his principles mean that he doesn't want regime change in Iran and wants those people to continue to be oppressed.
Does anyone want war in Iran?
I want regime change, yes.
Yes, I do, yeah.
I'm not sure I want war in Iran, but certainly.
Exactly. But actually, I think Nigel Farage has got a question. I think he's going to be coming up in just a couple of seconds. We'll take Nigel Farage's question and see what he goes on. Let's go straight to the comments now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Smash the gangs. That is what the Prime Minister promised us. Trust me, I will stop the boats from coming. But 70,000 later, and 1,000 in the last week, and too many young men that pose a threat to national security. Is it not time to admit Smash the Gangs has been a total abject failure, along, frankly, with most of his other policies? But isn't it now time, he told us, as summer approaches, what is Plan B?
Prime Minister. Well, Mr. Speaker, this is from the man in the party that voted against giving law enforcement counter-terrorism style powers to tackle it. So he wants the grievance, he doesn't want it sorted. And he has absolutely no judgment. He again said, let's join the war, let's all go to war. I want to make it perfectly clear he wants the war. A week later, screeching U-turn, we don't want to go to war. And he says, trust his judgment. Mr. Speaker, it's hard to take anything he says seriously. He promised lower tax, and now reform councils are hiking council tax by 9%. In Worcestershire, this is what he said about Worcestershire. He said, we took control of a virtually bankrupt council. I wish we hadn't bothered. He asked for people's votes, and then he abandons them. Reform don't want to solve problems, they only want to exploit them. I am thankful for the opportunity to change this country for the better. He says he wish he hadn't bothered winning councils, because they're an absolute disgrace.
Well, there's no doubt at all, no love lost there. I mean, goodness me, who do you think... Okay, Claire, who do you think that Keir Starmer hates more, Kemi Badenoch or Nigel Farage? Because I detect that this is a really personal animosity in these answers.
Yeah, I think there is absolutely no love lost between him and Nigel Farage, and I would suspect that that is the person he doesn't want to have questions from. Kemi Badenoch, he deals with. He doesn't like her particularly, I don't think, but he can deal with her.
Well, that's the process, isn't it?
he can mansplain to her a bit more. Whereas Farage, he can't get one over on him. And I thought it was quite shocking that he used the word screeching U-turns for anybody other than himself.
I mean, and you can actually just feel the laughter. Yes. And I think also the horror on the Labour benches in that one. Peter Cobble, I mean, Farage, this is his bread and butter. 70,000 migrants who come on those small boats, 1,000 just this week, mild weather, smashing the gangs hasn't worked. When will he admit it's a total abject failure? What is Plan B? It's a fair question, because Plan B hasn't worked. The Prime Minister's answer, I mean...
No answer. It was no answer. It was just an ad hominem attack on Farage and on what Reform is doing. He didn't even mention Martin Hewitt, for example, who has resigned as head of Border Force. He didn't mention that.
I can't even say there. I think I was off air on that day, but it's one of those. Apparently, we had someone who was
head of Border Force. It was their job to get to deal with this.
Who knew that?
Yeah, well, not anymore. He only lasted 18 months. But no answer for Nigel Farage. Just attack. And this is, often in Prime Minister's questions we don't get a full answer. We didn't get any answer there.
No. And again, he looks like he's on the back foot. He really does. Backs against the wall, coming out fighting. But there's a couple of things I want to talk to you about before we get to some calls. Going to take a quick break right now, and then we will come back. And I just want to ask you about Morgan McSweeney, but also this new report, which is basically calling Government Commission report calling for significant curbs to political donations, in particular banning cryptocurrency donations to political parties. That'll have a big impact on reform. That's up next. This is Talk.
conflict breaks out anywhere in the world, it has consequences here at home. Talk War is your definitive national security briefing. From the conflict in Ukraine to the tensions in Gaza and the latest escalation with Iran, this is where you'll find comprehensive comment and expert analysis with multiple updates throughout the day. The Talk War podcast from Talk, available on the Talk app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Afternoon, welcome back to the show. 12:27 is the time. I'm going to get to your calls, but I couldn't resist keeping Peter. We're going to keep Peter in the studio as long. We're going to lock the door, keep him in. Peter Cobble still here, Talk presenter, along with Claire Pearsall, former Conservative government advisor. I just want to ask you also about this extraordinary story in a bit more detail about Morgan McSweeney, Prime Minister's former Chief of Staff. He was Chief of Staff last October when his mobile phone was stolen from him. He claims, I'm going to put that in, he claims. I mean, I don't know, I haven't seen the footage of the CCTV. His phone was stolen as he left a restaurant on the phone, so his phone was unlocked. Someone in a balaclava on a bike, not unusual in London streets, I have to say, made a 999 call, but apparently, he's lost all his messages, all his WhatsApp messages with Peter Mandelson all around the time of his appointment and his sacking. Incredible bad luck, I think we can all agree. Well, it turns out the police didn't investigate. Well, the police actually took down the wrong address. They thought it was in East London, not in Belgravia, in the fancy part of southwest, central London. But also, crucially, he never mentioned he was the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff. Not in a do you know who I am way, but in a, yeah, I'm the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, my phone's been stolen, there may be some stuff on that we don't want. He didn't tell any, the number 10 star police who would have perhaps, made sure this was investigated, because most of these phone thefts are not investigated. Something, by the way, Peter, he would have known, because he was the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff. This looks horribly fishy, horribly questionable. The police have obviously failed. Apparently he didn't answer the phone the next 2 days. I assume a landline that he could have actually answered during work.
So it was his
personal phone. But the fact that these things weren't backed up, it's just looking just like a horrible bit of very, very helpful bad luck for him.
So the first thing you say is, I'm the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff. I am a very senior person.
With lots of very, very secret numbers on my phone.
I've been vetted. I mean, he was developed vetted. He had strap clearance, which was very, very secret documents. He's someone who had the Prime Minister's number and messages on the phone. He will have had messages with many, many cabinet ministers, senior people from around the world. You flag this, you shout, you jump up and down.
I need you to find my phone.
GCHQ needs to find the phone. They will have been tracking it anyway. Why wasn't it backed up? Why can't they...
Why didn't he have Find My Phone on his own phone?
They now can't get these messages. It's crazy. There are so many...
Why? There's a big question about why it wasn't backed up, because it was on some sort of... There's some problem with backing it up if it's a government phone. That's a bit of an issue, isn't it?
I mean, GCHQ should have had all of the detail that was on this. I've had a government phone. Claire's had a government phone. It's not that big a deal. And in fairness to the 999 operator, if you say, I have a government phone, well, tens of thousands of people
but
have
also,
those.
What does that mean? You work for the local council.
But exactly. Yeah. It's not that big a deal. He should have jumped up and down about this to a huge degree. He did not. He didn't give basic detail, and then he didn't follow up with the police. And the Metropolitan Police have got it in the neck for not properly investigating this.
They don't investigate it, but he would have known that.
Yes, exactly.
I'm sorry, this is looking very fishy.
It should have been. And also, you're in 10 Downing Street as well. He wasn't at that stage, but he was previously. There will be police liaison in there. There are uniformed officers on the door.
Yeah.
You say, this is a major, major issue. Sort this out right now. I need my phone. We need to find this.
Yeah, it's just looking very questionable, isn't it, Claire?
It is. I mean, he could have even mentioned it in Cabinet to the Home Secretary, who would have been sat around the same table, saying, just an FYI, can you have a help out with this one, please? It beggars belief. I don't think he's taken it all that seriously. And the Metropolitan Police are playing the fall guy.
No, I'm sorry. They're clearly going, no, we're not, because this is what your 999 calls, so they've released that transcript.
And fair dues to them for doing that.
Yeah, I mean, again, they mess up enough of the time, but on this occasion, although they took the wrong address, but again, you could...
he gave the wrong address.
He actually gave the wrong address.
Yeah, he gave the wrong address. Yeah. He gave the name of the road. It was a thing that people do. Road rather than Crescent or whatever. Okay. Or they thought it was in East London.
Okay, but again, no one comes out of this looking good. But again, I'm sorry. I'm thinking this is far too far too convenient for these messages to go missing. But anyway, also want to ask you about an announcement we've had from a government commissioned report into proposed significant curbs on political donations. Philip Rycroft, he's a former COP official, is proposing immediate changes to legislation to curb foreign financial influence on our political system. All in favour of this. This would include a limit to the amount that Britons from overseas can donate to British political parties, limits on company donations, and a new moratorium, so immediately bringing in a pause right now on all cryptocurrency donations for political parties. Now, I have to say this, we know this is going to impact Reform and Nigel Farage the most. Christopher Harborne, a Thailand-based founder of cryptocurrency, he gave about £12 million last year to Reform. They're the only party that accept crypto donations. I have to say, I agree with every single aspect of this. The whole point of you paying in crypto is that you can't really identify who's giving the money. Now, we happen to know about this, but no, I don't think that anyone living overseas should be able to donate to any political party. In this country, I don't think that anybody should be allowed to donate more than, say, £10,000. Individually or as a company, but because I think money is too influential on our politics. But this is a good start.
It is a good start, and I hope that certainly the foreign donations are extended to Sinn Féin in Northern Ireland, who take a lot of foreign money as well. The point of all of this is to clean it up as much as can be done. Foreign influence can be done in so many different ways, though we see so much influence on social media. And
even like Elon Musk, he could have donated to Reform because he has companies in the UK.
In the UK as well. So this is a start, certainly, but Reform UK will not be happy with this.
Yeah. What do you make of this, Claire?
Yeah, I think this is really sensible because you've got people hiding behind the anonymity of a currency that I don't actually entirely understand, I have to be honest. But I think that we need to look at what caps we have on political funding in the first place. I'm not sure that 10,000, but I think you need to have a conversation around how much. No, I want it to be low. I
don't want anyone to have any more influence on than my vote has. And
I think you're right.
I'm really sorry. I know people that Aaron Banks, when he donated to Leave.eu, and if he hadn't, my God, we may not have seen that Brexit vote. We'll talk about that with Gina Miller in a couple of moments. But at the end of the day, I don't want anyone being in a position where they can influence our politics because they've got more money than everyone else on whatever side, whether they're someone I agree with or disagree with. I think the Americanisation of our politics is a danger.
We don't want to go down the American road.
Absolutely not. Brig, thanks for saying. If you could just stay for a couple of minutes, got a couple of calls I want to get to. Michael's on the line. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Energy, big topic today, came up in PMQs, pretty much the whole of those 6 questions from Kemi Badenoch to the Prime Minister. But Michael's in Hertfordshire. Michael, what do you want to say?
Good afternoon to everybody. I can't go into Labour's mistakes because it would take a week. But I would like to talk about the oil. Experts and non-experts are saying we should be drilling for oil and gas in the North Sea. And Silly Band just won't do it. He keeps talking about it will cost just as much as we pay for it. What about the employment it would give? What about the tax the companies would? He's just got to be got rid of. He's just...
It appears to me that the Prime Minister agrees with him, and that's part of the problem. And certainly, this is up to the Energy Secretary, not me. He's an absolute load of codswallop. Michael, couldn't agree with you more. Well, look, none of us is experts, and we understand it, so I don't know how he doesn't. Oh, really, a Silly Band is absolutely the right title and job for him, or name for him. Graham is in Suffolk. He wants to have his say. Hi, Graham.
Hi, Julia. Thanks for taking my call.
Oh, thanks for calling.
That was another classic PM Q&A, wasn't it? Prime Minister's questions and no answers. I am very interested in the help that the government are going to give us for our gas and energy, gas and electricity bills. I'm one of the unfortunates who actually relies on domestic heating oil.
Oh, right,
I live 3 miles outside of Sudbury, which is quite a sizable town in Suffolk, but we don't have any gas or electric. I fill up 500 litres a time. 3 months ago, I bought 500 litres at £298. I filled up yesterday, having got 12 quotes, 500 litres at £670.
Ouch!
If I had needed to do it within 24 hours, it was £772. Now, I'm fortunate that I can just about afford it, but there
lots
are
of people can't.
People around here who are absolutely scared stiff. I mean, listening to that rubbish earlier, it's been evident for a long time that Miliband runs the whole show and is likely to be the next Prime Minister. Do you know how to get rid of him?
I've no idea.
He's got to be sectioned under the Mental Health Act.
See, I mean, but also Keir Starmer, who's appointed him. Graham, thank you very much indeed for that. I've got to go to a quick break in a moment, but good to keep Peter Carbell in the studio, because you've just been messaging with Number 10 folk about they go back to Morgan McSweeney, the former chief of staff to the Prime Minister, having his phone stolen, about there is actually a formal process when you have a government phone, you work in Number 10, you've got Prime Minister's personal number, messages on your phone, and it's on what you're supposed to do. So it doesn't sound like he did it. What was he supposed to do?
So this Number 10 insider has been there for many, many years, has just messaged me to say, if a Number 10 member of staff has their phone stolen or misplaced, first they have to inform security then inform the parliamentary police on the gates, and special branch. If it's someone like McSweeney, the cabinet secretary must be informed too.
Wow.
He would also have been told to inform his local police station or Charing Cross, which is the closest one to Downing Street. IT would have been informed as they issue the encrypted phones. Was that process followed? That's the question now.
It really does not sound like it, does it? If you made a 999 call to police, because you wouldn't make a 999 call if that was the first call you were making. Absolutely fascinating. Well, we'll see if we can get some answers to that, because the plot is thickening. And 12:37 is the time. Up next, we're going to talk about, well, Keir Starmer basically taking us back into the EU and basically undermining Brexit by the back door. No doubt he's being cheered on by my next guest. You remember her? Gina Miller, businesswoman and campaigner. She's up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hey, very good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 12:38 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, and this is Talk. Well, we've discovered that apparently dozens of EU laws are going to be imported to the UK under new legislation to be introduced by the Prime Minister. Part of this sort of, well, some would say controversial drive to bring Britain closer to Brussels again. Prime Minister's bringing forward a bill helping the process in the next parliamentary session. It's going to introduce basically a bill that will lead us to follow 76, count them, 76 European Union edicts on food standards alone. It's all part of us basically aligning dynamically, as in every single change we follow with the EU, in which case, why don't we just bother going back in? Well, let's put this to businesswoman and campaigner Gina Miller, who joins me right now. A very good afternoon to you. Long time, long see.
Long time, Julia.
It has been. Now, we were very much on opposite sides of the debate on Brexit, not just a Brexit campaign, but also on the attempts to undermine the biggest democratic vote for anything this country has ever seen. But Gina, I mean, there's no doubt at all, Keir Starmer, he was Shadow Brexit Secretary. He was desperate to stop Brexit from happening. It happened. Is he now just trying to turn it back without getting permission from the British people?
Well, I have to say, he's finally admitting the damage. But I mean, the problem is that this has got to be about grown-up conversations about the economy. Because really, if we don't have money in our coffers, we don't have a growing economy. I mean, growth is the thing they talked about. And I think what they've realized is that their policies have basically haven't budged the dial when it comes to growth or economy. So they're now looking at Brexit. But actually, the damage caused by Brexit, and it's now not theoretical. I mean, I have to say, I think 8% damage that they're quoting is a bit high. I think it's somewhere between 5 and 8%. But but these are large.
I mean, why not just say 20%? If we're going to make numbers up, let's just call it 20%.
No, it is there, but they are structural. And him tidying up at the edges and tinkering with the trade and cooperation agreement is really like saying, "Oh, we accept that you've got a broken back, but we're going to prescribe you paracetamol."
Right. You want him to go further and faster, taking us back into...
No. What I want them to do is to be honest, because the thing is, we've got to talk about three things, which is security first, economic reality second, and then a grown-up democratic mandate. And the fact is that this idea of doing it by the back door, nobody should be doing anything by stealth. Nobody. It should be an open conversation about where we are and what we need to be doing.
Okay.
And as I said, what he's proposing is basically tinkering. It's not actually going to really...
It's not going to tackle the issues. Now, I would suggest to you, again, we've had Rachel Reeves claim that there was this 8% hit to our economy as a result of Brexit. Look, we have no idea when we look at what's happened when we had COVID and lockdown and the energy bailout cost 40 billion quid, for goodness sake, back in 2022, very much in the news today. We've also seen the Ukraine war and all of the impact from there. It's impossible to actually work out whether there was cost and what that cost was. And bearing in mind, Germany and France have not left the EU unless I missed that memo, and their growth levels are as bad as ours.
Well, actually, when you look at the G7, it's comparing, we have to look at where we would have been. That's what the comparisons are. It's not against what other countries are doing. So that decrease, that estimate over the long term of, it's actually much higher than the 8%, is where we would have been.
We would have had growth like USA. That's rubbish. We wouldn't have had growth like the USA.
Sorry. The 4 to 8% is based on the last 5 years, because you can't base it on 10 years because we didn't have the trade and cooperation agreement. It's the real figures of where we are in the last 5 years, and the supposed remedies he's bringing in will help big businesses. But what about the poorest regions? What about small SME businesses who are on the floor? It's not going to help them. It's not going to help ordinary people. So this is the problem.
But most small businesses...
That's what I object to.
Most small businesses, Gina, do not actually trade with the European Union, and yet they've been forced for many years when we were in the EU to basically adhere to EU rules and regulations and things which were not necessary for their work. Any country that we trade with, the company that trades into, whether it's Canada or Japan or France, they have to abide by the trade rules of those countries. So it makes sense for those companies who are doing those exports to do so, but not for everyone else. The whole point of Brexit was that we would make our own laws, our own regulations.
How's that going? How's our economy going? How is our trade deal going?
Well, how is France's economy doing? How's Germany's economy doing?
Hang on. They
haven't left the EU. They're in the same doldrums as us.
Structural issues. We have structural problems in the UK. We are not helping our manufacturing sectors. We're not helping small businesses.
I agree with you.
Immigration controlled.
What's that got to do with the EU?
Coming in. Exactly, but that's where we left. It was not. I thought those were the things that benefit.
I left because I don't want unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats making decisions about my country. I want only my elected politicians.
Yeah, this is where I have a problem with a lot of what's being proposed, because a lot of this makes us a rule taker. And this is where we have to be honest with people. We have to be, and that's what I'm asking about. Can we have an honest conversation now, a grown-up honest conversation? Because by this realigning, we become rule takers. Whereas when we were around the table, we were actually around the table making those rules, whereas now and he's doing it by stealth, and I don't agree with that.
And I appreciate that, but I think the suspicion is, of course, is that actually, well, we're going to end up being rule takers, we're fully aligned, we're doing everything to appease the EU, so they'll stop punishing us for daring to have a democratic vote for Brexit. And then eventually the argument will be, at this point they'll say, well, you know what, we're rule takers, as you say, we may as well go back around the table and be rule makers. Would you support a referendum to go back into the EU?
No, I don't think it should be a referendum.
Because you'd lose it.
I don't believe in any referendum.
You'd lose it. You don't believe in referendums?
Actually, Julia, every single poll, depending on which number you're going to look at, apart from Lincolnshire, every single region and every poll shows that Reform would win. So let's not go there and mislead the public on the fact that
Reform would win? You mean Remain would win?
Yeah,
so go back in would win, you mean?
Remain. Yeah,
not after a campaign, not after we knew what the EU deal would be, not after
that's why I don't want a referendum.
Because you'd lose it.
got to be.
Could you lose it?
Because it would be lies. It would be based on lies, Julia. I thought we were going to have a grown-up conversation here.
Look, I do want to go to a conversation. You're saying we shouldn't go back in by stealth, but we shouldn't be rule takers. So the answer then is a referendum, right?
No, it isn't. It should be on manifestos for the next election. And I don't think right now, because the other bit of this conversation we have to be honest about is that we would be number 10 in the queue to rejoining if that whole debate came about. Because again, you have to tell people there are 9 countries ahead of us, including Ukraine. So we can't suddenly leapfrog them all and become a member again. You know, what we should be talking about now is what are the fixes to help our economy, to help businesses, to help the British public with their cost of living and keep our country safe.
Well, I can throw some ideas out to you right now, and that would be North Sea oil and gas drilling, ending net zero madness, taking people off welfare.
I'm sorry, Julia, but those are private companies. It would go back on the open market. That does not come back to the UK. You really do need to be honest about that.
Sorry, Gina, are you aware? Have you heard of this thing? I'm going to throw this out. Have you heard of this thing called tax?
Yes.
Yeah. So you are aware that when the license are given, there's also tax on that. Those oil sales, and the British government, the British people would get the benefit of that very, very high rate of tax. And that would be money that we had coming into our coffers.
So the cost of drilling on those fields at the moment is about 3 times what it was in the past because they're much, much deeper. Then it was sold on the open market. So we'd have to see what price then the tax.
And that's why Norway don't bother, isn't it? Because it's not cost effective. That's why Norway don't bother drilling. Right?
No. Norway have made a different decision, and they have different access to the fields, and they have a different structure of their market. What should be reformed?
Therefore, we can change all that. We're not in the EU. We can change all that. For some reason, drilling in the North Sea for oil and gas is a benefit to the Norwegian economy, but it wouldn't be a benefit to our economy.
Because of the way the laws work in this country.
We can change
and how
the laws.
We have to go about getting
governments
it.
do.
Yeah, and it will take time. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to help us in the immediate future.
No, I'm not talking about helping my bill next month, but long term. If we didn't do anything long term, we wouldn't have
5 years, 10 years, 15 years.
I'll take that. Yes, that works for me.
Yes. Well, we should be looking at a mix that is sensible for our country, because the most important thing is that we become. I mean, this war is proving that we cannot rely on Europe or actually any other country. We need to become much more self-efficient.
Yeah.
And we need to be the mix.
Okay.
We need to have a mix that makes us sustainable and secure and resilient. And that's what this conversation should be about.
Okay. I'm all for that, and I'm all for having that conversation. We try and have that conversation pretty much daily on this show, I have to say. Gina, the only thing I'm disappointed in
has to be Brexit.
Time is against us, and I'm just very, very. It's not down to Brexit. It's down to inadequate governments over the many, many years. I have to say though, I'm really disappointed we're not going to get the fun of another Brexit campaign because I know I'd win and it would be fun to beat you again. But it's an absolute pleasure to have you back on the show. Businesswoman and campaigner Gina Miller, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk. So I hope you come back again. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense. Final word to Claire Pearsall on that, listening to all that.
Oh, let's go round the block again, another referendum. But why is it that you can only have a grown-up conversation if you're going to talk about the Remain or rejoining the EU? What about the rest of us? Are we not grown up and democratic?
No, I don't think we are, apparently. 12:49 is the time. Up next, going to be talking about NHS abject failures on pretty every front and why we're not that satisfied with the NHS. This is Talk.
conflict breaks out anywhere in the world, it has consequences here at home. Talk War is your definitive national security briefing. From the conflict in Ukraine to the tensions in Gaza and the latest escalation with Iran, this is where you'll find comprehensive comment and expert analysis with multiple updates throughout the day. The Talk War podcast from Talk, available on the Talk app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, for me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. God, we're not going to get another another Brexit referendum. Maybe we should have a referendum on the NHS, our next subject of debate today. Let's talk to Dr. John Punters. He's the co-chair of Keep Our NHS Public, campaign group to stop people trying to privatise the NHS. Even as far as I'm aware, there isn't a single political party planning to do that. Very good afternoon to you, John.
Hello, Julia.
Hello, thanks for joining us. Lots of news about the NHS today. I just want to ask you just about the latest stats in terms of the sort of there's a very regular survey of patient and voter satisfaction with the NHS, and it was at 70% in 2010. Back in 2024, it was at 21%, the lowest it's ever hit in the wake of the basically the shutting down of the NHS during COVID. And now it's improving. It's gone back up to, guess what? 26%. We're basically looking like only 1 in 4 people in this country, pretty much all of whom paid for the NHS at some point in their lives, think that it's actually working well. That's a bit worrying, isn't it?
It's extremely worrying. And although these figures are being presented as evidence that things are improving, and that's why people are more satisfied, as you pointed out, these figures in historical terms are extremely bad. So back in the 90s, when people were also very concerned about the NHS, satisfaction was about 35%, and it did go up to 70% after changes that were made by New Labour, which included, of course, increasing investment.
I mean, huge amounts of money went in under Tony Blair.
So these figures are bad.
But the interesting thing is, huge more amounts of money have gone in. With, you know, we had a debate with Gina Miller about that. You know, £350 million extra a week for the NHS if we chose, instead of left the EU. More than that has been going in to the NHS since COVID, and yet we're not seeing satisfaction levels going up. The money seems to be going to this bottomless pit, but we're not seeing a lot more operations, a lot more treatments, and things happening much quicker. Where's it all going?
Well, you know, I think what my answer would be to that is that the NHS has to grow. The population's gone up by 7 million.
And it's aged.
And, you know, hospitals are falling down. 25% of primary care facilities predate the NHS. There were 120 sewage leaks in my hospital the year before last. You know, there's all these infrastructural problems, as well as still 100,000 staff vacancies, which make it difficult to be more productive. And lack of beds is a huge problem. Now, the biggest change under Labour in 21 months has been the huge increase in corridor care. So last month, 150,000 people waited more than 12 hours on a trolley for admission. And many of those, or some of them, would die as a result. Royal College of Emergency Medicine says 16,500 people.
But then, I mean, here's the thing: is it literally beyond the wit of man to find some space for some more beds and to hire some more staff? I would have thought your number one job, if you're a hospital manager, would be to hire more staff and make sure you've got more beds.
Well, the problem is wider than that, as you're well aware. So 1 in 7 beds have patients in who are fit to go home.
Yep.
There isn't community support, social care support, so they stay in hospital. So
well, I'm old enough and ugly enough to remember when, 20 years ago, various governments said they were going to deal with that, the joining up of social care. Boris Johnson came into office, he had a plan. He had a plan for all of that as well, didn't he? No government actually tackles it, even though it would actually save money and improve the NHS. I mean, it's almost like the system doesn't work, John.
Well, government doesn't work very well in this respect. They really do have to grasp the nettle of social care. And the Royal College of Emergency Medicine had said 10,000 extra beds would actually make quite a big difference. but you could actually get something like 13,000 if you didn't have people that were staying in hospital.
We do spend less on the NHS than a lot of comparable countries, but we spend pretty much around the same compared to a number of countries in Europe who have similar populations and have much better outcomes. The worry is a lot of people have is they spend a lot of money in their taxes on the NHS and they're not getting the service when they need it, which is why they're dissatisfied. It's why relatives of mine are having to go private to get hip operations and knee operations so they don't wait a year and a half. Now, some people are able to afford that. Most people aren't. And we already have. I know you're big fears, and we don't want two-tier healthcare. We've already got two-tier healthcare because people who can buy their way out of NHS waiting lists buy their way out.
Absolutely, and that's why when you say no political party is arguing for privatisation, they don't argue openly for it, but their policies actually drive it in that direction.
Whose policies? I mean, you've got a Labour government in right now. You've just given junior doctors a big pay rise. I mean, okay, not as much as the train drivers got. They're obviously much more important and highly trained. But they're in a position to pour more money in, are they not?
Well, Labour has embraced the private sector as partners who they say have common aims in wanting to improve the health of the population. I think that's highly questionable. 2.5 billion extra under the elective care agreement with them. And of course, people find it very difficult to access NHS facilities and treatment, so they go privately.
Well, it did, but again, I mean, they can't find a lot of these doctors. But it seems to me, I don't think most people care less who's provided the healthcare, as long as they actually get the healthcare, and if it's probably at the point of need, which seems to be what the principle should be. We've got more than half of NHS consultants, though, according to a new survey, said that they want to work for a new online hospital that would basically allow them to video call patients from home. I don't know if this is entirely not seeing anybody at all in person, but a lot of people would want to do video consultations, save them having to trek to see a consultant many miles away in a hospital, waiting around and all of the faff involved and the cost and the length of travel time. That would be a good thing, wouldn't it? Except a bit worried about a load of doctors just sitting at home rather than seeing patients in person.
Well, I just want to go back to your previous point.
Very briefly, if you could.
They don't care who they see. I think with ophthalmology, cataract surgery, because more and more of that's done in the private sector, you now have underfunded, understaffed NHS units where patients with potentially reversible causes of blindness are going blind because the money is going into cataract surgery in the private sector.
For other people. Well, yeah, but it doesn't matter who does it as long as people are getting the operation, doesn't it?
Well, it does matter if your policy means that some people go blind as a result.
I think some people are going blind anyway because they're not getting their cataract surgery in time.
No, cataracts don't make you go blind.
But I think that's a rather dubious game. Look, I just find it. We haven't really got time for actually anymore. I'll have to leave it there. I did come to you rather late. Apologies for that. We had a lot to talk about after PMQs. Dr. John Punt is co-chair of Keep Our NHS Public. Claire Pearsall, your response to what you had to say?
I think that we just want an NHS that works. We don't want online hospitals. We don't want